Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Murder Church. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate the hell out of it. I was making sure I had my bells ready to rock and roll. Before we get started, thank you all so much for hanging out, being here early. I see a lot of people ready to rock and roll. Yeah, hell yeah. Thank you all so much. As you come through, hit this like, share it, hit that like, share it out to people. Let people know you're going to be hanging out at Murder Church this morning, watching week 17 of the Jeffrey Dahmer insanity trial, which is mind-boggling to me. Everyone hanging out this morning, thank y'all so much. See a lot of people is in here early, just kind of in here chatting. I love that so much. I am not T-Pain, Dilly Pickles, Tracy, Susie from the future, Anna, Megsy. Thank you so much, Megsy, for being here. Anna, going down through the. If I miss somebody, I'm so sorry. Donna, thank you for being here. So much, guys. Tangled Crochet, hell yeah. Joanne popping through here. Disney Nerd popping through here. Ready to go this morning for a little Murder Church. Shannon. Kathy. Kelly Gale. Ashy. Ready to rock and roll, baby. That's what I like to see. Not even messing around. Week 17. Unfreaking believable. I can't believe it. And Shannon's going to come through here a little bit early before we even get the bells rolling with a $4.99. Passing the plate early, Pastor Steve. Here lurking while working. Oh, wow. I like the, making that thing rhyme a little bit there for us. Hell yeah. Love it. Yeah, get her going early, Shannon. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Charlotte. Boom. Denise. Boom. Ava. Roll it through here, baby. That's what I like to see. Shalama. What's going on? Everybody, thank y'all so much. Let's go. Murder Church, MJ, baby. And I did send Kaylin out a message as well, MJ. So hopefully she'll get her butt in here this morning. Got to be here for Murder Church, baby. Yeah, let's hit the bells. Who's going to miss the bells? You'll probably get extra bells. Thank you so much as everyone gets into their pews. And we're ready to go with week 17 of Murder Church. Yeah, I had to do the beard right before it went on. Sometimes it gets a little curly in the night. A little bit out of place, but we got her going. Give me a sip here. As again, yeah, on the stand today, in this first video, it's a 33-minute clip. We might be able to get through a few here. We'll see. James Potes Jr., Kyle, Wiley, and Steve Altman take the stand. See if there's any more details about them. Sometimes it gives kind of like their relation to what's going on here. And I don't think it does. Make sure we're ready to rock and roll, though. Get her on the old intro nets. I think we are. Let's go, folks. Again, Murder Church, rocking and rolling. Boom.
You solemnly swear that all the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Please be seated, sir. And sir, would you tell us your name and spell your last name, please?
James A. Petz Sr., P-O-E-T-Z.
Mr. Petz, how are you employed?
Petz. I destroyed that name. It looks like Potes. Petz.
I'm the owner-operator of Easttown Chem Dry Carpet and Upholstery Cleaning.
And how long have you been so employed?
Been doing this for the last 4 years.
And in the course of that employment, have you had occasion to come in contact with the person you now know as Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, sir.
And is he seated in the courtroom? Okay. When did your contacts with Mr. Dahmer occur?
The first time was on November 5th of excuse me, I have a cold. First time was on November 5th of 1990.
And when was the second time?
June 17th, 1991.
Draw your attention to November 5th of 1990. How did you come in contact with Mr. Dahmer?
He called up for an estimate on cleaning his carpet in his apartment.
And did you go to his apartment to get that estimate?
No, I believe we did that over the phone, and he was satisfied with the initial price. We came out and remeasured the apartment, make sure the price was all right, and then did the carpeting.
And where's that apartment located?
I believe it was at 925 North 24th. 25th. Sure. I believe 925 North 24th or 25th.
Could it be 924 North 25th?
Possibly,
Okay.
yeah.
Look at this guy's track jacket.
Do you recall
really
the
a jacket,
condition
but
of the
pullover.
apartment on November 5th,
Like
1990?
comfy. Looks like one of those, like it's not actually, he's not going to go running in that. It looks comfy as hell. I'd rock that. It's color scheme and
Yes, it
all.
was rather clean, nothing cluttered, no clutter in the place. Normal amount of furniture. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary.
And did you notice any particular stains in the apartment?
Yes, in the bedroom of the apartment, there was quite a large dark stain on the carpet.
And did you ask Mr. Dahmer where those stains came from?
Not at that time, I believe. I believe we went
It's like the
ahead.
velvety kind, right? It's like the, like it's the one that's the, you don't even see those anymore really big. But I know when I was growing up, my dad would be rocking the hell out of one of those sweaters, those pullovers.
Tried to clean the carpet first to see if the stain would be removed.
And could the stain be easily removed?
It
No,
does.
it did not come out
It
for
does.
the general cleaning.
Hold on.
And at that point, I asked him if he happened to know what that stain was.
And what did he tell you?
He told me that he believed it was chocolate.
And based on your 4 years of experience, did that seem reasonable to you?
It seemed reasonable, but we had to do some spotting on it. After he told me it was chocolate, I tried the things that we would do to remove chocolate, and it did not come out.
Okay, when it wouldn't come out, did you try other spotting agents then?
Yes, sir. All that I had in my tray, I tried, and it somewhat came out, but it was not chocolate.
Did you mention to Mr. Dahmer what you thought the stain was?
No, I just told him that I don't believe it was chocolate. It was more like red wine or blood.
Pardon me?
It was either red wine or blood.
Do you remember any peculiar odor in the apartment?
No, sir.
Do you remember anything about the apartment that was out of the ordinary?
Not really.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 70 for identification. Can you tell me what that is, please?
Yes, this is an invoice from 11/5/90, a paid receipt with my initials on it.
And is that an invoice that you gave to Mr. Dahmer?
This is a copy of the invoice.
Okay. Is that the one from your personal records?
Yes, sir.
And is that an invoice that you use in the ordinary course of business?
Yes, sir.
And did Mr. Dahmer pay on November 5th, 1990?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall how he paid?
In cash.
Let me draw your attention to June 17th, 1991. Did you again go to 924 North 25th Street?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, did you have opportunity to talk with Mr. Dahmer again?
Yes, sir.
Did you make any observations of the apartment at that time?
At that time, again, it was in relatively neat condition. There were some pictures on the wall. I do not know what they were. I didn't pay that much attention to it. I was mainly there looking at the carpet again.
Did the apartment seem markedly different from how it appeared on November 5th, 1990?
No, sir.
Did Mr. Dahmer appear any different from how he appeared on November 5th, 1990?
No, he was basically the same.
On June 17th, 1991, did you go to the apartment alone?
No, I had someone there with me.
Who did you have with you?
A helper of mine,
What's his name?
Larry Cook.
And Did Mr. Cook assist you in cleaning the carpets at that apartment?
Yes, sir. Well,
Do you recall ever having to leave that apartment on that day?
yes, I had to leave. I was ill that day, and I had to leave.
How soon did you leave it after you arrived there?
About 15 minutes. There was another individual also there with me. I did not leave him there alone.
Okay.
You can't do the job by yourself.
So there were 3 of you who went to the apartment?
Yes, I was there about 15 minutes, and I left.
Okay. And you left 2 employees behind you, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did you have any reason to fear for the safety of your employees?
Not at all.
Now, you had the opportunity to meet Mr. Dahmer when you cleaned his carpet on November 5th, 1990, correct?
Yes.
And you saw him again for 15 minutes on June 17th, 1991.
Yes, sir.
Did you make any observations of him at that time?
Just on the second occasion?
No.
On the first occasion, just the fact of that large stain in the bedroom and how neat the apartment was. And
Did you make any observations of Mr. Dahmer himself as a person?
he seemed rather quiet person, but in my talking with him, he had said he had worked 3rd shift at Ambrosia. And usually at that time of the day when we clean the carpets, that's like the middle of the night for some people when you're working 3rd shift. So he seemed rather quiet. He was interested in how we clean the carpets.
Did he seem friendly?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to carry on an intelligent conversation with him?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever think he was hearing voices?
No.
Did you ever think he was having hallucinations?
No.
Was his speech ever incoherent?
No.
Did you ever think he was irrational in any way?
No.
Did you ever feel he was out of touch with reality?
No.
Based on your contact with Mr. Dahmer, what impression was made on your mind by his conduct, actions, manner, and expressions that you observed of him?
He seemed just like a regular normal person
No further
that I would
questions?
run across anytime.
Okay.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Petz. I just have a couple questions
Sure.
to ask you. When you spoke with Mr. Dahmer the first time on the phone, how long did you talk with him when he first called about the estimate?
I have maybe about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay. And when you went to his apartment for the first time on November 5th, 1990, how long were you in his apartment with him?
At that time, I was there roughly around an hour, maybe a little more.
Okay. You indicated that there was a large stain on the bedroom carpet. Can you give us an idea how large that stain was?
Approximately 2 by 3 diameter.
2
by 3 feet, approximately.
2 feet by 3 feet?
Yeah, somewhere between 2 and 3 feet.
Okay, and you indicated to Mr. O'Mara that I wasn't quite sure if you thought it was blood or wine, or did you actually tell Mr. Dahmer that that's what you thought it was?
The stain could, after I realized that it wasn't chocolate, I tried a cleaning procedure for removing chocolate. After that, I tried a few other techniques that we use for removing different stains, such as red wine and blood. At that point, I would have said that was either red wine or blood, more closely to blood.
I've seen some blood in
All
my
right, the
day.
second time that you went to Mr. Dahmer's apartment on June 17th, 1991, again, did you speak with him on the
Got some
phone?
mustache. It's powerful.
He set up the appointment.
And
The
did
whole
you
combo. The glasses, the stash, the shirt.
talk for about 5 minutes or so?
5 or 10 minutes when I was there.
Now, when you went to his apartment to clean the carpet, again, was it stains in the bedroom carpet?
We cleaned the whole apartment. The stain was still there in the bedroom.
Okay, the stain was still on the bedroom carpet. Were there more stains in the bedroom carpet?
I don't believe so, but at the second time, I didn't spend as much time there as I did the first time.
You were there for 15 minutes.
Right, the second time.
Both times that you were at his apartment, back in November of 1990 and again in June of 1991, was Mr. Dahmer alone, or did he have someone else over there with him?
No, he was alone.
Compared to most of the apartments that you cleaned, did you feel his apartment was small or large?
I'd say it was about an average, medium-sized apartment.
Other than those 2 times that you were there cleaning his apartment, was there any occasion for you to be in his apartment again?
No, ma'am.
Okay, have you ever done anything socially with Mr. Dahmer?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Dahmer at all seem to be hiding anything from you while you were there?
No.
Did he appear to be secretive at all?
No.
That's the thing about him, right? He just had excuses for everything. He's like, it's just the fish tank. It's just the turtles in the fish tank. It's this dirty-ass fish tank. I'm sorry about the smell. Yeah, he just always had all these excuses. But come on, just dig a little deeper, guys. Come on. Nah, I'm not saying this guy could have done much else, but...
And the invoice that was marked as an exhibit, I assume that he did sign his name to that, Mr. Jeff Dahmer?
Yes, he did.
No further questions, thank you.
Nothing further, Judge.
You may step down, sir. Thanks.
Yeah, and that was 12 minutes, but in the next 20 minutes, we're going to get 2 more people rolling through. This clip rolls pretty quick. Let's see how many we can get through today.
State calls Mr. Kyle Whaley.
Raise your hand. Solemnly swear all testimony you're about to give
Whaley.
will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth shall be
Last
guided.
name.
Please be seated, sir. And then would you state your name, spelling your last name, please?
Name is Kyle Dean Whaley, W-H-A-L-E-Y.
And Mr. Whaley, how are you employed?
I'm employed at Illing Company.
At Illing Company?
Illing Company.
Could you spell that?
I-L-L-I-N-G.
And how long have you been employed with that company?
About 11 months.
If Illing
What's the
Company
nature
is
of
still a
that
thing. What the hell's Illing?
Yeah, it's a container packaging
Oh, he's gonna tell
business.
us.
We sell industrial shipping containers.
It is.
And what's your duties with that company?
My duties are sales service manager, like an inside salesperson.
And during the course of your employment with that company, did you have occasion to come in contact with someone you now know as Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, I did.
Can you identify him by where he's seated and what he's wearing?
We'll stipulate to the identification.
Okay.
Very well.
Do you recall what date you met with Mr. Dahmer on?
I believe it was July 12th,
Of what year?
91.
And when was your first contact with him on that day?
It was approximately 9:30 in the morning by phone.
And what was the subject of your conversation?
I was interested in purchasing some kind of container drum of some sort.
Did he say what he was going to use this container or drum for?
At that point in time, no.
Okay. Did his question seem fairly intelligent?
Yes, I did.
Did you give him a price range of what sort of drums you had?
I believe I did, yes.
And did he seem satisfied? Did he ask any other questions that you were?
He wasn't quite sure what he really wanted at the point in time, so he said he might come down and take a look at some of the drums we discussed about on the phone.
Did there come a time when he showed up at your office?
Yes, he did.
About when was that?
Approximately 2 hours later, about 11:30 in the morning.
And that's on July 12th, 1991?
That's correct.
When he showed up, how did you know it was Jeffrey Dahmer?
Somebody called me from the warehouse and said that somebody was there inquiring about a drum, said they had called this morning, so I assumed that that was the gentleman I spoke to.
And at that time, did you meet him?
Yes, I did.
Did you notice anything strange about him when you met him?
No, not at all.
When you met him, what did you do?
He introduced himself, and we talked about the conversation we had about the drums. And at that point in time, we went over to another warehouse, and I showed him some of the drums we were discussing.
Approximately how many different drums did he look at?
The most specific drums he was inquiring about were 10-gallon open-head industrial drums.
Okay, what's an open head drum?
An open head is a drum that has a lid that fits on top.
This is the company he got the drum that was sitting in his apartment that he's putting bodies in from this Illing company.
It's not a closed drum.
What's a closed drum?
It is like a tie head, like a 55-gallon steel drum or plastic drum is all one piece. An open head is two piece.
And did the two of you discuss the relative merits of each drum you looked at?
First, we looked at the 10-gallon drums. He said that that was not sufficient size. At that point in time, we went to the other warehouse where I showed him some larger size drums.
And did he appear to understand the difference between the drums that you were showing?
Yes, he did.
Did he eventually select one?
Yes, he did.
And did he end up paying for it?
Yes, he did.
How did he pay for
He
it?
paid for it by cash.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 71. Could you tell me what that is, please?
That's a bill of lading on the sale that was made there at Illing
I'm
Company.
a coffee cup guy, and I love that coffee cup that is sitting right there. Look at that coffee cup. Being used to hold these markers, but that is a damn fine coffee cup.
On the sale that was made there at Illing Company.
That's the type of coffee cup that I'd pick up at a flea market any day of the week for a quarter.
And whose handwriting appears on that bill of lading?
Jeff Dahmer's.
And does your handwriting appear on it as well?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And were you present when he was writing on that bill of lading?
Yes, I did.
And is that a document used in the ordinary course of business for the Illing Company?
Yes, it is. That's a tendered bill of lading for sale.
And is that the bill of lading you filled out on, that you saw Mr. Dahmer fill out on July 12th, 1991?
Yes, it is.
We'll stipulate for submission.
Did you ever ask Mr. Dahmer what he was going to use the VAT for?
I believe I did, yes.
And what did he tell you?
He said it was for packaging acid for home use, for breaking down large quantities into smaller quantities.
Acid?
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 72. Can you identify what that is?
That is the 57-gallon open-head drum that I sold Jeffrey.
Pretty sure that that's the same drum?
Pretty sure.
Okay. In your prior jobs, have you had experience hiring people
Yes, I've had.
and firing people
Yes, I've had.
and interviewing different folks?
That's correct.
All told, about how much time do you think you spent with Mr. Dahmer on July 12th, 1991?
No more than 30 to 45 minutes.
During the time you spoke with him, did you believe he was hearing voices?
No, I did not.
Did you believe he was having hallucinations?
No.
Was he able to carry on a reasonable conversation?
Yes, he was.
Did he ever give irrational answers to your questions?
No, he did not.
Did he ever seem incoherent in any way?
No.
Did you ever believe he was out of touch with reality in any way?
No.
What impression was made on your mind by his conduct, actions, expressions, and the conversations which you observed that you had with him?
It was pretty much a normal sale that our company has. So.
And Mr. Dahmer, what did he seem like?
He seemed like a normal person to me.
No further questions.
Cross-examination. Was there something further? Or
You got something, Boyle? You got something to say, Boyle? Let's go.
Really, Mr. Dahmer called you
Hold bull
first
back.
before he came.
Hold the bulldog back, huh? The Boyle dog.
Is that right?
Who hasn't done that one yet? Who hasn't made that joke?
And did he give his name on the phone when he called you?
No, he did not.
Okay, but he told you what he was interested in. Did he tell you a volume of drum he was interested in?
One.
Did he tell you what size?
No, no, he did
He
not.
didn't say, I want a 55-gallon drum
No.
or anything like that. He told you, though, that he wanted an open drum, right? Did he, and he didn't tell you on the phone what he was going to use it for,
No, he did not.
but he did tell you later?
Correct.
Okay. And did he volunteer that information, or was that something that you asked?
That was something I asked.
And what was his answer?
He was going to be packaging acid at home, turning quantities from large volumes to smaller gallons for small volume.
Okay, he said he was doing this at home.
Right,
Correct.
Joe?
Did he say what kind of
It's not
acid?
suspicious. A normal cell of someone wanting a barrel to use acid to break things down in your home. My thoughts exactly. A little bit sus, a little bit weird. Maybe we should ask a few questions. Maybe we should make at least one phone call.
Muriatic or hydrochloric.
Okay. Do you know what muriatic acid is used for?
Those acids are muriatic or hydrochloric are used for like when fireplaces are built, chimneys, hearths. It cleans the extra concrete off to leave a smoother surface on hearths.
Okay, so construction workers might have a use for something like that?
That is correct.
Okay. Did Mr. Dahmer tell you what he did for a living?
No, he did not.
And you're sure, as you recall it today, that he didn't tell you on the phone what it was that he wanted that tub for?
I don't recall.
Okay. You told him to come on out and look at the variety
did.
that you had so that he could pick out the one he wanted.
That's correct.
And you first went to your main building and looked at some that you had there, and then went to a different warehouse?
God, Shannon. Like, just regular black coffee, no way. I mean, I've drank it before is the thing, but I mean, and what's even weirder is I put it in the chat there that I love the show Twin Peaks. Anybody that knows the show Twin Peaks knows why I say that. But anytime I ever start to rewatch it, and it's getting about that time of the year, I like to watch it when it starts to get kind of fall and a little bit chillier outside. I try to start drinking coffee and I do. I'll buy coffee and I'll drink an entire, however you want to say it, like a whole pack of coffee. But I get all those fancy, sweet creamers, and I mix it all in. But I still don't get like addicted to the coffee to where I need the coffee. And I don't know, it doesn't really affect me like that. I always just drink water in the mornings, or usually not even soda. Sometimes I'll get a DDP in the morning, but usually water. I do like some chocolate milk, but I usually don't drink like a glass of chocolate milk. I just take like a swig of chocolate milk, and I don't know.
That's correct.
And then came back to the main building, is that right?
Oh, hold on. Let's keep her pause for 1 minute there. Tangled Crochet, $5. Passing that plate early. Thank you so much, Tangled. Appreciate that. Let's give you a little bit of ODB. And a little biggie. I'm a bad, bad man. Thank you so much. Passing it early, getting that out of the way there. Appreciate that, Tangled Crochet. Helps us out here at Publicly Buzzed. Anybody that is not a member, I would suggest becoming a member for Tuesday shows, guys. Going forward, and I'm putting a lot of work into it as well. And here's the thing. So Tuesdays are going to be a members-only show. It's going to be me presenting a killer that you've hopefully never heard of. I'm doing some work, trying to find, and there's so many stories out there. Everybody's covering a lot of the big major ones. I want to do something a little bit different on Tuesdays. It's going to be a members-only show. And then the next week, the following Tuesday, that video will release to the public. It'll be an edited version as well. It'll be an easier to consume video for YouTube. But on those Tuesdays, it's going to be, and I was using the word intimate and everyone was making fun of me, but it's going to be way more of just like a personal connection type of thing. I'm going to be presenting the story fluently and professionally, but also we'll still be able to interact and stuff. But all of that will be cut out of the video that gets released the following Tuesday. So yeah, I would honestly recommend becoming a member if you're not going to want to miss those on Tuesdays. One thing, I'm not sure if it's going to be every Tuesday or every 2 Tuesdays. I want to make sure that the killer that I'm presenting and the story I'm presenting is again professionally done, and I can present it in a way that I'm happy with. So.
Now, in any of your conversation with him, did he have any hesitancy as far as identifying himself or what it was that he wanted this that for?
No, not at all.
Okay, and you indicated that when you first met him that he identified himself to you?
Yes.
Did he tell you his name was Jeff Dahmer?
That's correct.
Okay. He never gave you any false information with respect to his name or anything like that?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. Did you ever hear of somebody having a 57-gallon drum that size in an apartment building?
Not knowing he lived in an apartment building. I've heard of people come in quite often to buy single containers like that.
Okay, but he told you he was going to take it home and use it at home to move acid from a large quantity down into gallon
That's correct.
containers. You didn't know that this was going to be in an apartment?
No.
Okay. And he filled out that bill of lading.
I filled out the bill of lading. The only thing on there is his signature.
Oh, okay, so that does have your handwriting.
That's the way,
Is
Austin.
that right?
It is my printing, yes.
Okay.
And his signature.
He signed it. He signed his own name.
Yeah, Bobby knows.
correct.
Anna's, yeah, she's membered up. She knows.
He gave you his correct name and said he was from Milwaukee.
That's right.
And so far as you know, that information is correct.
That's correct.
Extra Gypsy also. Yep. The Gypsy is starting to, the extra members only Gypsy, that is starting to become more prevalent, I should say, for members and people that are paying. And yeah, I've got to get my kitties on there as well. I've got to get a schedule. I've got to get an animal, a pet schedule, specifically for members. That's what I got to get.
And the way that you found out about this is about 10 days later you saw his picture on television. Is that right?
That's correct.
And at that time you remembered that you had seen him at your place of business some 10 or 11 days earlier?
That's correct.
And you contacted the police, I take it?
I did.
I have no further questions.
Yeah, he's selling a container that day, right? He's like, shit, yeah, I gotta sell.
I'm sorry. Mr. Whaley, you didn't require Mr. Dahmer to show you any identification, did you?
No, I did not.
And normally you wouldn't require a person coming to purchase something like this to show you identification.
No, I would not.
Okay. So he could have very easily given you a false name and you would never have had occasion to suspect that that name was false.
I wouldn't suspect too much on a cash sale.
Right. And you've never heard of anybody using a drum of that size or form in an apartment, have you?
No, I have not.
That's all.
Nothing further, Judge.
You may step down, sir. Thanks.
State called Stephen Altman.
Please raise your hand. Solemnly swear all the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Please be seated, sir.
Would you state your name, spelling your last name, please?
Name is Steve Altman, A-L-T-M-A-N.
Mr. Altman, how are you employed?
I am employed at National Ace Hardware.
And how long have you been employed by National Ace Hardware?
8 months.
And what are your duties there?
I am the paint department manager.
And where is National Ace Hardware located?
1303 North 4th Street.
And is that in the city and county of Milwaukee?
Yes, sir.
In the course of your employment, did you have occasion to come in contact with someone you now know as Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
Is he seated in the courtroom now?
Yes, sir.
Stipulate to identification.
Do you recall what date it was that you had contact with Mr. Dahmer?
July 20th of 91.
Okay. And what day of the week was that?
A Saturday.
And what was your first contact with Mr. Dahmer on that day?
Earlier in the day, about 10 a.m., I had received a phone call from him.
And what was the substance of that conversation?
He wanted to know if we had carried muriatic acid and in quantities.
And did you fill him in on that?
Yes, I notified him that we did carry quantities of it.
Did he ask for a specific quantity?
16 gallons.
And did you have that?
Yes, we did.
And what did he say when you told him about that?
Said, great, and he'll be right down.
Okay. Did there come a time that day when you met Mr. Dahmer in person?
Yes, sir.
About when was that?
About 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
And did that take place at National Ace Hardware?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall anything about Mr. Dahmer at that point?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. How did your contact with him occur? How did it take place?
Well, I was
I call this a Christmas sweater, right? This is a damn Christmas sweater. Look how thick that thing is.
stocking paint thinner in our solvent aisle, and I happened to be putting out a case, and Mr. Dahmer just came around the corner.
And did he ask you a question?
He had asked if we had muriatic acid.
And what did you say at that
I
point?
said, oh, yes, are you the gentleman that had called earlier?
And what did he say?
Yes, he was.
So did you get the muriatic acid for him?
Yes, then I told him that it would take a few minutes. I'm going to have to go downstairs and get the acid.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
And did Mr. Dahmer purchase the 16 gallons of muriatic acid?
Yes, he did.
Do you remember if he purchased anything else?
A couple boxes of Soilax cleaning agent.
Anything else that you recall?
No, sir.
Okay.
There's no red flags there. Here's your acid, sir, and your extremely strange cleaning agent.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 74. Can you tell me what that is?
This is a sales receipt showing the purchase of gallons of acid, Soilax cleaner, and some gloves.
And is that dated?
Yes, it is.
What date appears on it?
July 20th of 91.
And is there a time on it?
12/21.
And is that the sort of document kept in the ordinary course of National Ace hardware business?
Yes, it is.
Would that be one that would go to, would that receipt in State's Exhibit number 74 be one that would actually go to the customer, or is that one that you would keep for store records?
This would be a copy similar to what the customer would take home with them.
Okay. And can you tell that that's the receipt that was given to Mr. Dahmer?
Yes, I can.
How can you tell that?
16 gallons of muriatic acid.
Did you sell 16 gallons of muriatic acid to anybody else on July 20th, 1991?
No, sir.
I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 73. Can you tell me what that is?
Also a receipt showing the purchase of acid, Soilax, and gloves.
And does that appear to be the original receipt that would have been given to the customer at that time?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible that State's Exhibit number 74 could have come from your bookkeeper's office?
Yes, it would have.
How can you tell that? What's the difference between 74 and 73?
73 is the actual inked copy that would be given to the customer, and Exhibit 74 is run off in a series of tape. Our tape keeps track of all of the sales throughout the day, so we can go back and check purchases.
During the time you talked with Mr. Dahmer, did you believe he was hearing voices?
No, sir.
Did you think he was having delusions?
No.
Hallucinations?
No.
Was he able to carry on a conversation in an intelligent manner?
Yes, he would.
Did he ever appear incoherent?
No, sir.
Ever appear irrational?
No.
Did you ever believe he was out of touch with reality?
No.
No further questions.
Cross-examination?
Mr. Altman, did you know Mr. Dahmer was coming in the store in the past as a customer of any kind?
No, sir.
You did not? You never saw him before until that day?
No.
It indicated at some point in time when you had talked to police detectives that you did know him as a customer from the store. You'd never seen him otherwise. You're saying today that you never did.
Never seen him before that time, no, sir.
Okay. Do you know what someone would have use for muriatic acid and Soilax, that he bought that combination of things that day?
They're not related items.
They're
The
not.
The acid would be used in construction as such to etch concrete, whereas the Soilax would be used for cleaning walls or floors.
Okay.
Yeah, well, Shannon, I'm a hazmat tech, and most acids at the strength they're using especially are very dangerous. I couldn't imagine, and like Austin said there too, you know, you have to show your ID for a can of paint now, right? Back then, were you just able to go in and get these crazy chemical cleaning agents and a vat of acid, 16 gallons of acid? with no questions asked? I don't know. It seems a little strange. I don't know. Donna going to come through with the $2 passing the plate. I have to leave early. Oh, well, I hate that you have to leave early today. Donna Minner coming through here with the $2, so appreciate that. Boom, let me hit you with one of these. Oh, love it, though. Hate you have to leave early, but hopefully you have a good Sunday, and hopefully you got a good start with Murder Church here. While we got it paused, I'm going to give Viv some extra bells, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're following Art with Viv because she's absolutely amazing, and yeah, she'll teach you how to draw something, how to do a little bit of artwork. Extra bells. Extra bells, ladies and gentlemen. Love to do it. Thank you all so much. Everybody rocking and rolling.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Coming out hard this morning.
Okay. Since you don't know him to be a regular customer of any kind, did you have any idea of what kind of business he was in at the time that he came in?
No, I
Did he pay with a company check?
paid with cash.
Paid with cash, so you had no idea at all whether or not he was buying this for his personal use or for someone else?
That's correct.
Would you consider that somebody purchasing such a large quantity of muriatic acid would be considered in bulk?
That would be considered a bulk purchase, yes.
Is that something that ordinarily, if somebody would purchase that kind of quantity, it would be for the purpose of some construction company?
No.
Would they otherwise buy it from a wholesaler if they're going to buy it that much,
Yes,
wouldn't they?
that's correct.
Did you consider that to be unusual?
That type of sale, yes, it would be.
Likewise with the Soilex?
Soilex, no.
Okay. Did you see how he arrived or left?
No.
Okay. No further questions?
Nothing further, Judge.
You may step down, sir.
State Falls Police Officer Al Shaped.
Bang out another one here. We got less than a minute. He's going to sit down. No questions at all, sir. Joanne, we're watching you. Uric acid is used in oil, gas industries, chemical manufacturing, steel production, and can be used for cleaning pools in concrete. Shannon L.
Take a short recess. Question recess.
We have another witness to go to.
What? You got somebody else that you can?
I'd say if you give us 3 minutes.
Okay. Question recess.
All right, ladies.
Gonna move on. Moving on. Joseph Gabish, and it looks like Lieutenant Keith Mueller take the stand. And what do we got here? We got about an hour to go on this one. Let's rock and roll, baby. We'll hit you with a little bit of a stinger just real quick. I like these stingers. A little Murder Church stinger. Thanks again, everyone, for being here. Appreciate the absolute hell out of it. And we'll keep rolling. We'll keep rolling. Again, share this out to your communities. Let people know that you're hanging out with Publicly Buzzed live and on Murder Church this morning, whether that's in Facebook and Facebook groups that you hang out in, on Twitter, on X, on whatever social platform that you're hanging out on. Let people know that you're here on Sunday mornings hanging out at Murder Church. Love it. Thank you all so much. Let's go into the next video.
Yeah, later we swear the witness and Mr. Boyle is here. Solemnly swear all testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated, sir. Will you state your name and spell your last name, please?
Joseph Gabish, Gabrish.
In the early morning hours of May 27, 1991, you were a City of Milwaukee police officer, is that correct?
That's correct.
You were on duty and your partner has already testified he was John Balcerzak, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
You and he were riding in the same squad, Squad 36?
Correct.
I'm going to short circuit right to the point. There came a time at or about 2 a.m. that you were dispatched with a report of a naked male in the vicinity of North 25th and West State Streets, is that correct?
The dispatch, as I recall, it was a naked man down near 25th and State Street.
And he went in that squad to that location, is that correct?
Correct.
As you pulled up there, you saw a group of people standing at the mouth of an east-west alley that opened off North 25th Street, is that correct?
That's correct.
You pulled into that alley with your squad lights on,
The headlights of the squad car were on, yes.
and you got out of the car.
That's correct.
What did you do after you got out of the car? What did you see and what did you do?
I exited the car. I was the passenger of the car.
Then you're going to prison post. What if I hate going to the store, so I want to get a season's worth at once? Then you're evil. What are you doing?
There was a group of people in the alley, and they were all pointing to a white male and a second Asian male who was naked just east of our location in the alley.
Did you get out, when you got out of the car, did you approach anyone in particular?
I walked towards the two individuals that were east of us in the alley immediately after exiting the squad car.
Were the two individuals next to each other or in close proximity to each other?
Yes, they appeared to be walking together.
And what did you do then?
We separated the two individuals so that we could question them as to what was going on.
And your partner, Bolserzak, took Mr. Dahmer and you took the Asian male?
I talked to the Asian male, correct, and my partner talked to who we later found out to be Mr. Dahmer.
And would you tell the jury what, if anything, you said to the Asian male, and what, if anything, he responded to you?
I asked him several times what his name was, his date of birth, trying to get informational questions about the goings-on from him, and he did not give any type of communicable response to me.
Was he making any noise at all? Did you get any response at all from him?
He was basically mumbling, but there was nothing that could be understood.
Were you close to him at this time?
Yes, I was.
Were you in front of the headlights on the squad?
Yes.
What observations, physical observations, did you make of him at that time?
That he was an Asian male, that he appeared to be approximately 19 to 20 years old, that regarding any injury, the only thing that I noticed that he had a scuffed knee. He appeared to be in somewhat of an intoxicated state.
Do you recall if you smelled any alcohol on his person?
Yes, I did.
And in terms of the intoxication, can you tell us how his eyes were? Can you describe his eyes in any way?
His eyes just appear to be glassy.
Have you seen persons in such condition before?
Yes, I have.
And did you undertake, or at least as you continued to speak with him, did you form an opinion as to what his situation was?
He appeared to me to be intoxicated.
Do you know whether the intoxication was from alcohol and/or some other drug, if you know?
I do not know for sure.
How long did you proceed to talk with him in that fashion?
Well, I don't recall looking at my watch at all, but if I approximated it, approximately 5 to 10 minutes.
Was he standing during this time, or had you placed him in some particular position?
He both stood and leaned on the front of the squad car.
Did there come a time that fire personnel approached the scene?
Yes, shortly after our arrival, they pulled up.
And what did you observe them do?
They exited the truck and came into the alley. I believe there were 3 of them altogether that actually exited the truck.
And these were firefighters?
Yes, they were.
Do they sometimes receive a call of a man down? Is that sometimes relayed to the fire department with concern that there might be an injury to someone?
That's correct.
You don't know precisely what happened, but do you think that's what happened?
I believe that's usually the standard. If there's any type of indication of an injury, the dispatcher from our communication system will relay that to the fire department.
And you believe they responded to a dispatch such as you had responded to?
That's correct, I believe so.
Did you have any conversation with those firemen or fire people?
I requested a blanket from, most of my conversation was to the fire lieutenant. I requested a blanket from them so that we could put it around the Asian male.
Do you know that fire lieutenant's name?
No, I do not.
Was such a blanket produced?
Yes, he sent a female firefighter back to the fire truck, and she brought a yellow disposable blanket, at which time she opened it and handed it to me, and I placed it around him.
And the Asian, did you wrap it around the Asian male at that point?
Yes, I did.
Were you able to secure a name from the Asian male?
Not from him, no.
Were you able to secure a date of birth from him?
Not from him, no.
Were you able to secure an address from him?
Not from him.
Were you able to secure, other than what you observed of him, were you able to secure any information from him by any statement he gave?
No.
What happened then?
The fire department looked him over briefly, at which point I suggested that he had either been drinking or was intoxicated. They continued to look him over, and then they left.
Shit, say no to globalism. I'm going to come through here real quick with a little bit of the old $4.99, passing the plate, and she knows. And the bowl. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Say no to globalism. Let me give you a little bit of a... Hit it with the DJ, right? Hit it with the DJ, man. I'm going to hit her with the very rare. I think she's going to like it.
This is gun country.
It's gun country, baby.
The fire people left?
Yes.
And what, they get on their truck and leave?
Yes.
Right. Who takes care, if there is injury, who's responsible for that?
The fire department is.
Right. So they looked him over, they got on the truck and left?
Yes.
Right. Had you observed, as they were observing him, had you observed any particular injury on him other than the knee?
No, just the scuff to the knee.
What happened after the fire department left?
My partner came up to me and told me that he had obtained information from the white male to whom he was talking to. And basically that the Asian male's name was John Hamong, and that he was 20 years old, and that he had been staying with him for the last, I believe he said 2 to 3 weeks.
Had been staying with whom?
With Mr. Dahmer. He also had obtained Dahmer's name at that point.
And did he mention that what the white male's name was?
Yes, Jeffrey L. Dahmer. I believe he also had a date of birth, but I don't recall what that is.
And what, if anything, did you and your partner decide to do?
At that point, my partner asked the Asian male some of the similar questions that I had been asking him in an attempt to get a response from him. There still was no response.
He did not respond to Balzerzak either?
Right. My partner, Officer Balzerzak, then asked the crowd if anyone there knew the Asian male or knew what was going on, and no one responded to him at that point.
Had you had any communication from persons in the group while you were attempting to talk to the Asian male?
Tell how nervous he is.
I had communication briefly when I got there. Someone suggested that the Asian male and the white male may have been in a fight. Later on, I believe that same person came up to me and said she had further information. I requested that she stood back momentarily until we could stabilize the situation and get it under control, and that I would be with her as soon as I could get to her.
After Officer Balzerzak attempted without success to get any information from the Asian male, what, if anything, did you or he do?
At that point, Officer Balzerzak went back and talked to Mr. Dahmer again for a short period of time. And shortly after that, he came back to me. We decided to continue our investigation by way of going back up to the apartment, as my partner had.
Investigation. Let's not, come on. Let's calm down, sir.
Found out that the Asian male had been there previously, and that's where his clothing was.
And what did you then do at that point?
We then proceeded, well, another squad drove into the alley from the opposite way at that point, and one of those officers had come out of the car and into the alley and was with us.
What was his name?
Officer Richard Perupkin. At that point, Officer Perupkin and myself and the Asian male and Jeffrey Dahmer began walking toward the rear of the apartment.
The mouth noises. Drink some water, sir.
Balzerzak followed us in the squad car.
All right, would that mean that you walked further east? This alley we're talking about is an east-west alley that parallels and is south of West State Street. Is that correct?
That's correct, but it also swings around and continues south for about a half a block and then comes out again onto 25th Street.
So you walked east to that until you came to the alley that parallels 24th and 25th Street, is that correct?
That's correct.
Then you walked south down that alley towards Dahmer's apartment building, is that so?
That is correct.
Is that apartment building 924 North 25th Street,
I believe it is, yes.
City of Milwaukee,
Yes,
in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin?
yes.
So that you walked, were you walking next to, or what exactly was your position as the four of you, that is, for Officer Perupkin, yourself, Mr. Dahmer, and the Asian male? The four of you walked up the alley southbound towards Dahmer's building, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, where were you physically as you covered that walk?
I was on the right side of the Asian male. Officer Perupkin was on his left side, and Mr. Dahmer was next to Officer Perupkin, still on his left side.
Did you engage in any conversation with Dahmer as you walked up the alley?
Yes, we did.
And was that about the first time you were talking to him?
Yes, it was.
What, if anything, was said by him, by you, or
Yeah,
Perupkin?
these are great questions. Did Jeffrey plug the hole in his head? Was cerebral fluid leaking?
That time.
Well, we walked.
Trigger warning, again, at the beginning of the show. It should go without warning. The show's called Murder Church, but anybody lurking that may just randomly stumble upon this, trigger warning.
Back to the apartment, Mr. Dahmer spoke of the crime in the neighborhood and how bad he thought it was. He said he was glad that the police were in the neighborhood and that there was a need for the police. I believe he may have been smoking a cigarette during that time. As we got near to the apartment building, it was the rear of the apartment building, obviously, he spoke of the need for extra locks on his apartment and that he had a security system because of the crime and the nature of the neighborhood.
Did he indicate where his apartment building was as you walked up the alley?
Yes, he did.
And did you enter that apartment building from the rear door off the alley?
I think it's off a little parking area, actually, by the time you get up to the door and the steps, but it's in the rear by the alley, yes.
Right. And did he have a key for that back door?
Yes, he did.
All right. And did he enter then into the apartment building, the hallway in the apartment building?
Yes, he did.
And during this time, can you describe what your observations you made of the Asian male?
He basically just walked with us. He didn't indicate that anything was wrong.
Did he stagger at all, anything like that, if you recollect?
He may have had some trouble walking due to the fact that he had been drinking, but he basically walked on his own, and we just guided him and helped him keep the blanket over himself.
Did he then go in the apartment building as well?
Yes, with us. We all basically went in at the same time.
And then Balcerzak got out of the car and followed you?
Yes. In fact, I think we waited for him for about 5 seconds, and then we all went in together.
As you went down the hall, then you came to Dahmer's apartment?
That's correct.
And what did he do when he got there?
He was still talking about security systems, and he unlocked the door and let us in.
And did you follow into the apartment building, into the apartment?
Yes, we did.
That would mean eventually yourself, Officer Perupkin, your partner, Officer Balcerzak, Mr. Dahmer, and the Asian male. Is that correct?
That is correct.
You've come to know the name of that Asian male, have you not?
Yes, I have.
And this is subsequent to the May 27, 1991, you came to know his name. Is that so?
That's correct.
And what is his name?
Conrad Simplifone.
When you entered the apartment, what did you observe?
Basically that it was a well-kept apartment. It was neat.
The smell, sir.
Apartment.
Did you make any observations as you walk into what room do you come?
It's sort of a combination living room area, and then there's a kitchen off to your left.
Are you homophobic,
did you see
sir?
any bedrooms or bathrooms off the main room?
There were 2 other doors. I've since come to know which was which. I didn't know then, but those doors were closed.
Right, this would be you've learned to come to know that was a bedroom door and a bathroom door.
That's correct.
And are they off to the right from that main room?
Yes, they are.
Were those doors open or closed that evening?
They were closed.
After you entered, you made general observations that it was a neat apartment. What else did you observe?
That there was a blanket on the couch in that main living room area, and that there were clothes next to the blanket, and that's where Conrad went and sat down.
Had he said anything, Conrad, up to this point?
No, he had not.
Did he say anything after he sat down?
No, he did not.
What did you do then, or what did you observe then, or what was said then?
Just didn't want to deal with the situation, dude.
The next thing that happened was that Officer Perupkin, he had walked the farthest into the apartment. He had found a picture on a coffee table or a table that was in the apartment, and it was of the same Asian male, Conrad.
And what did he do with that picture?
He held it up to Officer Belzerzek and myself, who were standing near to Mr. Dahmer, and we asked Mr. Dahmer what it was, and his response was that everyone is into something, or everybody has got to be into something.
Dude. Straight to jail, right? I need that soundbite.
I just recall that he
fuck,
had one
dude.
picture.
He's an accomplice to murder. I said it.
States the difference 68. Can you recollect, first of all, do you recognize either of those pictures?
I recognize exhibit number 69 as the one I saw that day. This is not the exact photograph that I saw. It was a Polaroid photograph that I saw that day.
Does that appear to be a copy of what you saw?
Yes.
Right. And what is depicted in that exhibit that you say you recognize?
It's the Asian male in the same apartment posing in a black pair of swimming suits.
And is he laying somewhere, or is he standing in that exhibit?
He is standing up.
And what is his clothing?
Just the black swimming suit.
And does he appear to be awake, or his eyes open?
He's awake. He's standing, looking directly at the camera.
Did you recognize the person, when Perupkin held that up, did you recognize the person depicted in the picture?
I recognized it as the same person that we were there with.
And that is the Asian male?
That's
that
correct.
You've come to know as Conrad Synthesymphone?
That's correct.
Did anyone undertake to examine the clothing, to look for anything in the clothing that was seen on the couch?
That's correct. While we were in there, I observed that Officer Belzerzek went over to the couch where the clothing was, and that he went through the pockets and patted it down.
Was any identification found for the Asian male?
No, there was none found.
Do you recollect any discussion at that point about the identification of the Asian male?
No, I do not.
You were now in a better lit circumstances, I assume, than in the alley.
Right.
That's correct. There were lights.
Think about that. A better lit area now. You can see. Dude, what the actual fuck? These dudes literally are too lazy to do their fucking job, or again, homophobic because we know what was going on, or scared again they're going to catch AIDS because of the time period and being just shit. Like, what the fuck?
Right. And did that better lighting afford you a better opportunity to examine the person of Conrad Synthesymphone?
Yes, it did.
Did you make observation of any other injuries on his person other than the knee about which you have spoken?
No, I did not.
What happened after you saw the pictures? The one picture. That
We
you
ran away. We freaked out. Got the hell out of there.
We asked Mr. Dahmer what it was, and he said that everyone was into something. And we depicted that to mean that they were friends or had some sort of relationship.
And then what happened?
After that, we again attempted to talk to the Asian male. And we also talked to Mr. Dahmer. We told him that if that type of activity would continue and the police had to be called again, that we would have to take some sort of action.
Right. When you say the type of activity continued, what activity were you speaking to?
That if the Asian male would run out of the apartment again without clothing in an intoxicated state, that we would have to issue a citation or take some other sort of legal action.
What happened then after that communication?
Mr. Dahmer assured us that this was a friend of his and that he would take care of him, that there would be no further need for the police or any further disturbance whatsoever.
And what happened then?
After that, we told the Asian male, who we know now as Conrad Synthesymphone, that we were leaving. he showed no sign of any stress or didn't show any...
He didn't show any sign of anything the entire time that you had any kind of interaction with him at all. What the fuck?
Or say anything to us about leaving. We felt the situation was fine, that basically our investigation had been completed at that point. We were assured, like I said, by Mr. Dahmer that no further activity would continue, and we left the apartment. We went back to our squad, and we circled the block again to make sure the area was clear and that there was no further need for the police in the area.
You had indicated, and going back to when you were in the alley, that you had asked a lady to stand by, that you were going to talk to someone else first. Did there come a time that you looked for that lady?
As I stated earlier, Officer Belzerczyk made a plea to that crowd while we were out there to see if...
Like, that hit me when he said, in better lighting. Okay, you're outside, it's dark. It's still really no excuse. You have multiple people telling you this is not right. Something's off here. Look at this person. But you get up into the actual apartment where the lights are on, and you're still just like, what the hell?
Anybody had anything to tell us? There was no response at that point. That was also our purpose of circling through the alley again to see that if there was anyone out there.
I like that. Good morning, Murder Church!
Who had any further information for us, and there was not.
Had you ever seen counteract synthesis phone before?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Had you ever seen Jeffrey Dahmer before?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I believe I've asked you to identify him in court. Is there stipulation on that? In terms of would you describe how you observed Mr. Dahmer? You first really started talking with him as you walked up the alley, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you state whether he was calm or not, what you thought of him from the conversation you had with him?
He appeared to be a normal individual. He answered all our questions. He was polite. Gave us no reason to suspect anything of him at all. He was very cooperative with us.
Sure he was.
You were in the alley and then later
he approached
in the
you?
premises itself. Did you make any observation of his clothing, how he looked, what his appearance was?
His appearance was, he wasn't tattered or anything like that. It was normally dressed. He was wearing a pair of glasses on that particular night. Just appeared to be normal, nothing out of order.
In your discussions with him, as you went up the alley and then in the apartment, did he appear to you to be suffering any delusions?
Not that I was aware of, no.
Did he appear to you to be suffering from any hallucinations?
No.
Was there any incoherence in his speech?
No.
Was he unable to relate his thoughts to one another?
God, Angel, I mean, that's his literal, what you just typed out there in the chat and I just put up on the screen, that's his last ditch effort, essentially, in a state when his body and mind's already being taken over by the drug that he's consumed thanks to Jeffrey Dahmer. Holy shit. When you put it the way you just put it, Angel, it really hits hard. Like, that sucks. Like, it really sucks because that was his last little, please help me, and then runs into these pieces of shit cops. I'm just going to say it. I mean, they did not do their jobs this night. This was horrible. Horrible. This story is the worst part. Maybe one of the, I mean, you can't say it's the worst part because there's all of the victims, but it's one of the worst parts of the whole thing. Just the breakdown of this, of what happened when this child escaped.
From your observations?
Yes.
Did he appear to be in a stupor in any fashion?
No.
Did he appear to you to be any way out of touch with reality?
Not that I could tell, no.
That's all. I'm sorry, just one additional question. Did you smell anything in the apartment?
While we were in the apartment, I realized that my partner doesn't smell anything because he has allergies, but there was a slight smell, which I equated to that of a bowel movement or somebody had just gone to the bathroom.
So you smell that. Your partner has some kind of what?
He has allergies, seasonal allergies, and he's on medication for that seasonally. And I assume because of that reason, he didn't smell the same thing that I did.
That's Balzerczyk you're speaking of?
That is correct.
Right. Thank you.
Son of a bitch!
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Allergies! Yeah, my partner has allergies, and yeah, I thought somebody just took a big shit. Dude, those smells are not the same.
I just have a few questions.
What's Boyle gonna say? What the fuck is Boyle gonna get up here and say?
The area that you patrol is not very far from this area, correct?
About a half mile.
And it is a composite of all kinds of different folks, all ages, all colors, all minority groups, male, female, everything, correct?
That is correct.
Now, within that grouping, Asians are the smallest of minorities, are they not?
I don't know that much about demographics in Milwaukee, but I encounter few Asians.
Very few.
I would say so, yes.
And the young man, were you able to pinpoint his ancestry any more than just Asian? Did you think him to be a Laotian? Did you think him to be Chinese, Vietnamese, or just generally Asian?
Just of Asian descent, I am.
You were of the belief upon seeing him that he was consistent with the age that you reported earlier, 18, 19?
Correct, 19 to 20 years old.
There was nothing that anyone brought to your attention that caused you to believe different than that, correct?
That's correct.
Now, if Mr. Dahmer reported remembering a police officer looking with a flashlight at Mr. Sinthamason, might that have been you?
There were a lot of uniformed people on the scene between the fire department and myself. I know for a fact that it was not John or I that had a flashlight out there.
But you certainly were looking carefully to see if anybody was injured, right?
Yes, that is correct.
If you had seen somebody injured, you would let the fire department take over. Or you would have seen...
They were actually in charge the whole time of the medical aspect of it.
In other words, that would have been a serious thing. Yeah, that's one of the things you look on at every scene.
That's correct.
Right, now, Mr. Dahmer, obviously this young man wasn't talking, wasn't making any claim, wasn't making any noises that were accusatory towards Mr. Dahmer, correct?
Correct.
At no time did Mr. Dahmer tell you, I don't know who this fella is, I'm just happened to see him here and thought I'd help him out. He never told you anything like that.
No, he told us he was his friend.
The opposite.
Correct.
Volunteered to tell you he was his friend.
Yes.
And when you all started walking back to the apartment, he didn't say to you, that's okay, I can take over from here, I don't need you. He never tried to persuade you not to come forward, correct?
No.
So now he walks back with this young man and ends up in his apartment with 3 Milwaukee police officers.
That is correct.
All in uniform.
That is also correct.
You saw nothing suspicious about Mr. Dahmer at all, did you?
No, I did not.
And you saw no injury to young Mr. Sinthamason either, did you?
Just the scrape on the knee, which would have been consistent with possibly a fall.
It was your belief that they were operating, as Mr. Dahmer told you, in some alternate lifestyle of their own?
I believe so, yes.
That's what you saw and that's what you thought?
Yes.
Now, you couldn't have walked into any of those other rooms, could you?
No, we could not have.
So what you were doing, you wanted to make double sure that everything was okay and that he was telling you the truth.
That is correct.
If it's reported that Mr. Dahmer recalled somebody checking out for identification, do you recall who that was in the trousers of this young man?
It was Officer Belzerzek.
And did you recall Mr. Dahmer saying he never carries identification? Do you recall Mr. Dahmer making that statement in your presence?
No, I do not recall hearing that.
But doesn't mean he didn't say it. Just means if he did, you didn't.
I didn't hear it if he did.
Yeah. Once you saw the pictures, you became convinced he was telling you the truth.
Well, it wasn't only the pictures, it was the totality of the information.
Well, I understand,
the totality of everything that we learned while we were there.
But he told you that this was his friend, and there was pictures of this young man in his apartment.
That's correct.
Right. So when you went back to the apartment, you wanted to make sure that there was, well, let me ask you, in your wildest dreams, could you have charged him with any criminal offense or any kind of violation of ordinance?
No.
He gave you his truthful name.
Yes, he did.
As far as you know, he gave your partner his truthful date of birth.
Correct.
There were how many citizens out there other than public servants?
I would say 10 to 15.
They were all in the general area.
Within the general area, yes, maybe 10.
They had seen a naked young Asian just as you had.
Yes.
They had seen Mr. Dahmer go up and collect that naked young Asian at about the same time as you were coming on the scene.
That's correct.
He was seen by 3 members of the Milwaukee Police Department, right?
That's correct.
He was seen by personnel from the fire department.
That's correct.
He showed you up to his apartment.
Correct.
And he convinced you that you could go about your business, that he had everything under control.
We were convinced that all was well.
And there wasn't anything that you saw that could for one moment have caused you to believe that there was any problem at all, correct?
There was nothing.
That's all, thanks.
Redirect?
No, sir.
You may step down, sir. Thank you.
Fuck, dude, that one. Wow, unbelievable if you ask me. That's one of the hardest parts of the whole story to hear. That sucks. Yeah, still another 30 minutes. I think we got somebody else rolling up here. Who was coming up next? Lieutenant Kenneth Mueller coming up right behind Gabish, I believe it is how it's pronounced. I got to run to the bathroom. I'm going to put the smoke up. I'll be right back, but I'm going to let it keep rolling. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Really appreciate it. Thank y'all so much. Making Murder Church rocking and rolling every Sunday morning. Amazing. Thank y'all so much. Hey, real quick. Actually, hold on. I'm going to put this in the chat. I'm going to try to do a little commercial here. This right here is a link to an Amazon. This is an Amazon link. I think I did this last week, actually. Boom. You know, if you're going to purchase anything on Amazon, go through that link like today. You know, I purchase stuff on Amazon all the time. Go through that link specifically. Even if you go through that link and go anywhere else on the site, but it's through that link and purchase something, that helps this channel out. Publicly Buzzed gets a little bit of a kickback off of that. Just, you know, because that's obviously probably something you don't actually want to purchase unless you do. But if you use that link and go to anywhere else on Amazon and purchase your just normal daily stuff or anything that you're actually doing, you know, save that link and put it in, bookmark that on your, you know, on your computer, in your phone. If you go through that link again, Publicly Buzzed Lives gets a little bit of a kickback, helps us out here at the channel, and really appreciate it. Keep this thing rolling, and I'll be right back.
Lieutenant Kenneth Mueller.
Please, tell me, swear all testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please be seated. Please state your name, spelling your last name.
Kenneth Mueller, M-E-U-L-E-R.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm a lieutenant of detectives for the City of Milwaukee Police Department.
And how long have you been so employed?
I've been a lieutenant of detectives for the past 4.5 years. I've been employed with the Milwaukee Police Department for the past 17.5 years.
And were you so employed as a lieutenant of detectives on the morning of July 23rd, 1991?
Yes, I was.
On that date, did you become involved in the investigation of the homicides which are the subject of this case?
Yes, I was.
And on that morning, did you also have occasion to go to Jeffrey Dahmer's residence at 924 North 25th Street?
Yes, I did.
And is that location in the city and county of Milwaukee, state of Wisconsin?
Yes, it is.
First, Lieutenant Mueller, I'll show you what's been previously marked as Exhibit 19 and ask if that's a photograph of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment or a portion of it as it appeared that morning.
Yes, it is.
And what portion of the apartment does that depict?
It shows his front apartment door is open, and it shows a sliding door which is also open, which heads back to the bathroom and bedroom area.
And how many locks appear on the outside door?
There are two locks that appear there. There's the common entry lock, it's in the passage, and then there's a deadbolt lock.
And are those the locks that were there on that morning?
Yes, they are.
I show you now what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 76. Ask what that is.
This is a picture of the northwest corner of the living room, apartment 213.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the way that area appeared on the morning of July 23rd, 1991?
Yes, it is.
In that portion of the picture,
We're back.
or the apartment, was there anything that appeared to be a surveillance camera?
In the upper corner of the room would be the northwest corner. There's a bracket with what appears to be a camera mounted to the bracket.
Did you, or was a receipt for a dummy camera also recovered from Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment during the investigation?
Yes, there was.
And it was recovered from inside the apartment?
Yes.
I show you marked for identification, Exhibit 75, and ask what that is.
This is a receipt dated January 18th, 1991, from SOS Electronics, 1957 West Hampton, in which a dummy camera was purchased. And there's a customer signature, Jeffrey L. Dahmer.
Lieutenant Mueller, I'm going to now show you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 77. Could you tell us what that is, please?
This is a picture of the living room. It's now, instead of the northwest, we're now facing northeast in his living room. It's the northeast corner of his living room.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of the way that area appeared on the morning of July 23rd, 1991?
Yes, it is.
And that was the morning that Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested?
Yes.
And police entered and searched his apartment?
Yes.
Show you now what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 78. Could you tell us what that is?
This is a picture again in his living room, and just as you would look into the kitchen area, it's the west wall in the apartment of 213.
And what, if any, items does it show?
It shows a freezer. It shows several boxes of Soilix on the floor. Next to it is a table with a large kettle, an empty can of beer, and some empty bags of chip and some other empty beer cans.
In regard to the freezer, during the search of Mr. Dahmer's apartment, was a receipt for such a freezer found?
I believe so.
Show you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 79. What's that?
There's several papers in here. The top paper is a receipt from the Sears store for a freezer. The receipt is dated May 24th, 1990, and it shows that looks like a 10.5 cubic foot freezer was purchased and later delivered. It was delivered on 5/25/90 to Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment.
Also show you what has been marked for identification as Exhibit 80. Could you tell us what that is, please?
This again is a picture of the apartment. It's taken from the living room looking east into the hallway where the sliding door was leading to the bedroom and bathroom area of the home.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of the way the area appeared on the morning of Jeffrey Dahmer's arrest?
Yes, it is.
And Exhibit 81?
This is a picture in the living room. There was a alarm system set up on the wall that shows where everything was plugged in and where the controls were.
And was that alarm system set up in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment on the morning of his arrest?
Yes, it was.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of the way it appeared?
Yes, it is.
Was a receipt found for a camera from Black's Camera Shop?
This receipt, a copy of it was obtained from Black's Camera Shop. This was not from his apartment.
And that was a receipt for a camera purchased by Jeffrey Dahmer?
This is a receipt for a Polaroid camera which was obtained on 5/21/90 from Black's Photography.
And also, inside the apartment, was there an advertisement for 2 items that was found among Mr. Dahmer's personal effects?
Yes, there was an ad with a couple things. On top it says science sources. Underneath there it says chemical and lab equipment, and they give a description of some chemicals. You want me to read this, or?
All right, why don't you tell us what the chemicals are?
Okay, it says chemicals and lab equipment. Chemicals, small or large quantities for your convenience, glassware, scales, microscopes available, and then it says send $5 to a company. And then below that it says anatomical products catalog, charts, models, skeletons, free catalog, and it again gives a number and a company to call.
And what state's exhibit is that?
State's exhibit number 83.
In the course of the investigation, did you also obtain Jeffrey Dahmer's telephone records?
Yes, we did.
Concerning Jeffrey Dahmer's telephone records, have you reviewed those records?
Yes, I have.
And referring specifically to the date of July 10th, 1991, were there a number of phone calls to various companies?
Yes, there was.
Did the investigation indicate what those companies were?
On July 10th, 1991, there was 4 phone calls made to commercial or industrial barrel type companies. One call was made at 10:03 a.m. to Greif Brothers. It's a company in Chicago, Illinois.
I believe that's pronounced Greif Brothers?
Greif Brothers. At 10:09 a.m., a call was made to an industrial chemical company in Milwaukee. At 10:30 a.m., a call was made to a Southside Barrel Company in Milwaukee. And at 10:31 a.m., another phone call was made to a Southside Industrial Container Corporation in Milwaukee.
Also, were there any phone calls made to the Chicago Police Department?
Yes, there was.
And when did those occur?
There was 2 calls made on July 3rd, 1991 to Chicago Police, one at 7:03 p.m., one at 7:27 p.m., and there was a 3rd call made on July 4th, 1991 at 8:19 a.m.
And from the investigation, that was around a period of time that Mr. Dahmer had gone to Chicago?
That's correct.
Finally, Detective, we've referred to a particular type of sleeping pill or tablet that Mr. Dahmer used in these offenses. Did the investigation reveal a number of prescriptions being filled, either prescriptions being made out for Mr. Dahmer and indeed other prescriptions being filled at local pharmacies?
Yes, we did. We obtained several records regarding that portion of the investigation.
And these are all for the same type of sleeping tablet?
Yes, they are.
Could you start in 1986 with how many prescriptions he received?
1986, he received 3 prescriptions. One was on June 6th of 1986 for 15 tablets. A second one was on June 20th, 1986 for either 3 or 30 tablets. A 3rd prescription was on July 25th, 1986 for 30 tablets. Those were all from a doctor whose office is in the south side, or West Allis, Wisconsin, near where Jeffrey Dahmer's grandmother lives.
Dr. Carl Olson previously testified to writing a prescription for Mr. Dahmer. Did you check about where and how often that prescription was filled by Jeffrey Dahmer?
It was filled on 18 dates. 16 of those dates, there was a prescription for 30 tablets filled at a Southside pharmacy, West Dallas, Wisconsin. And then there was 2 prescriptions of 60 tablets each filled at a pharmacy in the downtown or Marquette area of the city of Milwaukee.
Could you give us the dates of the filling of those prescriptions, please?
Yes, the dates, the first 16 are all for 30 tablets, 2/13/87.
Viv, what are you doing in here? What are you doing in the chat? I saw the color pop up over here. Bright yellow, art with Viv, $10. Passing the plate before I go into lurker mode. Well, first of all, Viv, thank you for coming through here. Always appreciate it. But coming through here before you start your day, I appreciate the hell out of it. That's amazing. So let me give you a little love, first of all, for that, because that's amazing. Give me the loot! Give me the loot! I'm a bad, bad man. And I hope that you have a good Sunday, and I hope that this was a good start to your week, Viv. Thank you so much. And then before you leave, I know it's your favorite, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a little extra bells, Viv, huh? Just for Viv. Everybody else, close your ears. Boom!
$227.87, $410.87, $515.87, $71.87, $814.87, $911.87, $1230.87, $3588, $520.88, $8488, $10788, $210.89, $325.89, $527.89, $330.90, and then the next 2 are for 60 tablets each, $412 of 90 and $521 of 90.
After that time was a prescription, according to the investigation, obtained from yet another doctor?
Yes, there's 2 other doctors. One is obtained on 9/15/90, a prescription for 60 tablets. That again is on from a downtown or Marquette area pharmacy, and that was from a doctor who works at a area hospital.
And the last doctor?
Last doctor gave 3 prescriptions. One is 2/15/91 for 15 tablets.
Was that 215 or 25?
I'm sorry, 2/5/91 was filled at a Southside pharmacy. And then 3/22/91, 60 tablets filled at the downtown area pharmacy. And then 5/24/91, 60 tablets filled at a downtown area pharmacy.
And just also previously marked was a Exhibit 20 showing the front portion of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment after it was empty. And it shows the front door again.
Yes, it does.
It also shows an additional hasp box.
Oh, shit. Yep. Adam Malone going to come through here with the $5. And I love this one right here. Pre-roll on me while plate getting passed. Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate that. Boom. Tell Cletus I said what's up. Give me the loot. Give me the loot. Love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you, brother.
Yes.
How did that come about to be there?
After the Milwaukee Police Department emptied the apartment out, there was a hasp and a padlock put on that door while we were holding it, any possible additional searches, and also the management requested that we do that. The padlock was then secured onto that door, and to this day that hasp is still on that door.
All right, and that was not there on the morning of July 23rd, 1990?
No, that was added later that day or early the next day.
Sure. Want to get in?
No, I'll leave it.
Oh, good, thanks.
I have no further questions, thank you. Oh, Judge, I would move state's exhibits that have been marked indefinite.
No objection, there you go. I want to look at the one with the locks on the doors. Okay, now, that's exhibit number 19, right?
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of doors here. Which is the door if you walked in the apartment from the hall? Which door?
Right here.
How many locks are there?
There's two locks. There's a common entry lock or in the passage, and then there's the deadbolt lock.
Okay, now, if I'm inside, give me one inside with that door closed. Do you have one?
No, the best we have is this door here. You can see open, and you can see the locks along the inside.
Okay, so in other words, what you're telling me is that if I look at this one, 19, I see, is this the one you showed me just a moment?
Yes.
This one, 19, shows me, point to the two locks.
Right here.
All right, on the right side, you're showing me underneath where it says 2-1, there must be 3 there. There's 2 if you're outside looking at it.
That's correct.
And on the inside, if I'm looking at it, I'm looking at this same door. How many do I see there?
There's 2 on the inside, and then there's a hasp up here on the outside.
Okay, now, as I'm standing there, I'm looking, and I open up that door, how many locks do I see across the hallway?
3 locks on that one across the hallway.
So here's Tracy Edwards, who's asked a question of how many locks he sees. He opens up the door to get out of there. There's 3 on Dahmer's door,
No, there's 2 on Dahmer's door.
but there's a deadbolt collapse.
No,
That goes with one of the 2 of them?
there's only 2 on Dahmer's door. This one here and this one up here, and the deadbolt. Just those 2.
And tell me what this is then over here, right where your finger was. What's that thing right up there?
This?
Yeah.
That was the hasp that we put on, that the Milwaukee police put on later that day.
When that door's open, how many locks are across the hall?
Across the hall?
Objection, immaterial.
It's not immaterial to talk about what's on a picture that's been received in the... Sorry.
However, isn't it repetitious? Because I thought we just asked the witness that question a little while ago, and he gave the same answer.
Well, do you mind if I have him do it one more time?
I do.
Okay, I won't ask you to speak for itself. The fake alarm system, when was that put in? Show me that. Show us where that is. When was that put in, do you know?
I don't know when it was put in. It was purchased on January 18th, 1991.
Okay, did you see the boxes anywhere in the apartment that from whence that fake camera came from? Were they in the apartment when you...
I don't remember seeing the box of that. There was some box for some other alarm parts, but I don't know if that box for that camera was...
You know, somebody out there has decorated their apartment exactly like this, right? Probably not only from this photo, but taking it from the new Netflix series that was out last year, and how just perfect and accurate that they nailed it with the set design. Crazy. I see my boy Jay's rolling through here real quick, and he's going to be gifting out a membership. Who's going to get that? Oh, we got a lurker getting that. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, White Paint. Welcome to be a member. Welcome to being a member.
Welcome to the party, pal.
First of all, crack a couple open for you. I'm going to give you some satisfying pours. Oh, yeah, a little early, but still, you're going to get them. You're going to get them. Thank you very much. And please, on Tuesday, members, come and hang out Tuesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. You're going to get a very special show that I'm working hard on, killers you've never heard of. I'm not even going to name the guy yet, okay? So, yeah, please come and hang out. And then the next week, people that are not members will get that video. They're not even getting the full live, okay? The one that Tuesday's membership show is going to be fully, specifically for members, and it's going to be a banger show. I'm putting a lot of work into it. So yeah, White Paint, welcome. Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate that, brother. Beers in the chat also. Anytime we get new members here, I'd like to see beers, whether it's a liquor drink, whether it's a probably nothing. I'm going to throw one of those in there, whether it's a mimosa, whether it's this pill bottle that I'm just letting hanging out there. I've got to get rid of that one. And maybe a coffee. Maybe you just want a coffee, and maybe I'll spike that coffee. You never know. We love it. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it. And Jay's the best. While Jay's hanging out here for a minute, let me just put a little bit of love on it. Exclamation point. Boom. Jay. And I know also Bob Mata, my buddy, hanging out here as well. Let me put a little bit of love on him. Please go and follow and listen to Defense Diaries. Ladies and gentlemen, rocking and rolling here. Everybody hanging out here this morning. Love it. Love it. Look through the chat here just for a moment as we keep rolling here. Again, we got about another 9 minutes left of this video. Then we'll keep going. Still early here, about halfway through Murder Church. We still got a little bit of time left. Again, let people know what you're doing, that you're hanging out. Murder Church, Publicly Buzzed Live. Let's go.
Was there? What other alarm parts?
Well, there was another photograph which was introduced.
Hold it up and show us.
Which shows the alarm setup, and there were some boxes from that. That's the Black & Decker home security alarm system.
When was that purchased, those alarms?
That we don't know. We checked the area Black & Decker company and were unable to get a receipt, and we never did pinpoint the exact date of that.
But you found the boxes that those alarms came in?
Those boxes were found in his apartment. That's correct.
Where?
I couldn't tell you that. I know they were found in the apartment, but I don't know where in the apartment.
So he didn't dispose of those boxes?
No, he did not.
How about the receipts that you found? Where'd you find those receipts in his apartment? Where were these receipts found?
They were all found in various spots. So there was none of them that was found in the exact same spots.
So he kept receipts of things that he used.
Oh, shit. Nice. Bob just got gifted a membership by Hope Ain't Fear. Love that. Hell yeah. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Gonna do it up. Here we go. Satisfying Pores. Love it. You're gonna get those. You gotta chug 3 of those right now, Bob.
Welcome to the party, pal.
To the face at 10:47. Actually, I think it's 9:47 where he is. He's even earlier. Right to the face. Chug, 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 chug. Love it. That's fucking awesome. Beers in the chat. Rocking and rolling. That's what I like to see. Boom! Murder Church. That's awesome. That's so cool. I just seen it pop up. Somebody said, is Bob here? And he said something, then we get a membership, and then boom, he scoops that bad boy up. Love that. Thank you again, Hope Ain't Fear. You're amazing. One of the best out here. Hanging and banging, baby. Again, any lurkers that are hanging out. Yeah. I mean, this crew has a good time. We like it.
What?
Well, for the dummy alarm system.
That's true. That is a good point. Good point.
Surveillance camera.
Very good point.
For the freezer. He had several other papers in there.
Are his names on those receipts?
Yes, there are.
Was his name?
Yes, his name is on those receipts.
Okay. Now, we heard about all of these drugs that he was buying, and I see from what Counsel was reading from that she gave me to use 18 different times on here, right?
Well, regarding that one doctor, yes.
Okay. The first murder in Milwaukee, the first murder on the information, the one that's charged, was what date?
It would be James Dockstad, I believe, was January of 1988.
He had 8 prescriptions of that drug of 30 tablets each, or 240 such tablets purchased in his name prior to that murder, correct?
Probably had more because he had these 3 up here also, which were from 1986.
340, 370, 400.
About 415 he probably had purchased before that time.
And how many more did he purchase after the Dockstad?
I'd have to add this up real quick. If you give me a minute.
Sure.
One of them for sure. Seems like lurking and working. That's what we like to hear. That's what I do a lot of the time. Doing work while you lurk.
If my math is correct, 555 tablets after that date.
Was the aquarium that was in the fish tank in his apartment at the time that you were there in the morning of the arrest, was that in operating condition?
Yes, would you like me to show you that photo?
Let me see it, please. That operated?
Yes, the fish tank was operating, and it's on top of the black table, which has been mentioned earlier.
Were there live fish in it?
Yes, there were live fish in there.
Now,
What's up with the megaphone, or what's going on up here? Maybe it's something that I'm just not familiar with from older apartments, or is it like a speaker system that runs through the whole apartment complex? Looks like it's connected to something, though.
This picture show the amount of empty cans of beer that were found in the living room of that apartment?
It shows some empty cans of beer. There was some in some other areas, too.
Well, how many is that shown in that picture?
I see 6 empty cans of Budweiser beer, or at least they're opened on top.
That's
I
a
don't know if they're
sixer,
all
sir.
empty.
Were there other empty cans of beer that were found in that living room?
Yes, there was.
How many more? Empty ones?
There's another 2 or 3 across the room by that freezer there, and I believe there was some more on the floor which do not show up on these photographs.
Different brands, though, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't know for sure how long any of them had been there, obviously.
No, I do not.
Okay. So how many are we talking about at the most, assuming all of them were drank within that earlier evening, or any time within the 12 hours before the picture was taken? How many would it be, about 10, 12 empties?
Objection calls for speculation as to how soon they would have been drunk.
Sustained.
How many empty cans of beer cans are there that were found in the living room according to the pictures that were taken by the Milwaukee Police Department?
Okay, according to those pictures, there's 8 or 9 cans, but there's that's these pictures. There are some other pictures that show some additional cans of beer,
How
empty
about in
cans.
the bedroom? Tell us how many were in the bedroom?
I don't remember how many. I know there was additional empty cans of beer recovered.
Was there any liquor, any rum, any whiskey or anything found in that living room?
No, there was, I believe there was an empty bottle or near empty bottle of rum that was recovered.
Where was that recovered?
I don't remember exactly. I believe it's the bedroom, but I'm not 100% positive.
Okay, so you don't know?
No.
How about, well, look, one more thing. Oh, I know that. Is there a window in that living room?
A what?
A window in that living room?
Yes, there is a window in the living room.
If you look out of it, what would you see? What does it look onto?
There's another building off to the, just that window would be facing west, and there's another building to the west of the apartment.
And if one wanted privacy in that living room, how would one secure it? Are there shades, blinds, drapes, or what?
There are some curtains there. There's the window and there's some curtains.
Is that the condition that the curtains were in at the time those pictures were taken?
Yes, it is.
Had anybody opened them?
Not to the best of my recollection.
Would one be able to see outside, or would you have to?
It'd be very difficult at that time of night. You could see out there certainly during the day a lot better.
My question is, was there anything blocking the view of someone if they wanted to look in and they were high enough to look in? In other words, the curtains were open.
Well, there's a stand there and there's a large plant on top of there, and the window is divided.
In other words, but there's no other drapes that have to be open, or curtains or shades to be raised?
No, as far as I can see, just the one set of drapes or curtains.
And it's clear, is it not, that one of the things that the police department does when they come upon a crime scene is make sure that nobody changes anything in that crime scene until it's secured, until all the proper photos are taken and all the evidence picked up?
That's absolutely correct.
That's all. Thank
Thanks, Lieutenant. For the redirect.
No further questions.
You may step down, sir. Thank you.
Just ready for a little bit of the old murder church stinger.
It's 5:10.
What?
It's 5:10.
It is. Why, yes, I noticed that. Are you suggesting
Wrap it up for the
something
day
this
here.
weekend?
Oh shit, it must be the end of the week as well.
I saw Mrs. Boyle walk in a little while ago. I suppose she wants to take her husband into custody, so we'll recess and reconvene tomorrow morning at 8:30. How's that?
They have a good time in here. They have a good time, folks. We're going to keep rolling, though. So this would be after the weekend. Who we got? Who's up? Forensic psychiatrist Dr. Park Dietz testifies. And we got an hour 20 with this individual. Let's see if I got the name right.
I solemnly swear all the testimony that you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Sir, you may be seated.
Thank you.
Would you state your name, spelling your last name, please?
I'm Dr. Park Dietz.
Dietz, boom! In your face, everybody! Woo!
Son of a bitch!
Let's go! Let's go!
Burn!
Let's go!
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
All of them, baby. All of them. Let's hit them with the, a little bit of this guy. Rock and roll, baby.
D-I-E-T-Z.
You may proceed, Mr. Beacon.
Dr. Dietz, will you please advise the jury of your educational background, beginning
There's some background noise.
with college?
Can I have some? Excuse me.
I graduated from college at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York in 1970 with a bachelor's degree in psychology and biology, and then entered medical school. I received my next degree, which was a Doctor of Medicine degree, from the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in Baltimore in 1975. And in the same year that I received the MD, I also received a master's degree in public health, also from Johns Hopkins University. Much later, I received another doctorate, a PhD in sociology, also from Johns Hopkins. I had done my coursework toward that while I was a student, and then wrote a dissertation some years thereafter.
Did you then have any postgraduate training?
Yes, I did.
Would you advise the jury of that?
After finishing medical school, I began residency, which is specialized training in a medical specialty at Johns Hopkins Hospital, and for 2 years I was an assistant resident in psychiatry at the Johns Hopkins Hospital. And then I spent 1 year as resident in psychiatry and chief fellow in forensic psychiatry at the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. And so that fulfilled the general training requirements in psychiatry, and also provided me with specialized training in the subspecialty of forensic psychiatry.
Would you please tell the jury what positions you have held since you completed your training, and briefly summarize your responsibilities in each position?
The first position that I held after training was as an assistant professor of psychiatry at the Harvard Medical School. I was assigned to the McLean Hospital, which is a private psychiatric teaching hospital of Harvard. And at that time, the McLean was attempting to work with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to try to provide services to a notorious institution known as the Bridgewater State Hospital, a maximum security institution for the criminally insane that had been the subject of several scandals in the news prior to that. And as McLean was trying to transform it into a teaching hospital for Harvard, I was asked to come up to Harvard and to head the forensic psychiatry program in this effort. And so for 2 years, my task was to run the forensic psychiatric service at that institution. Now, forensic psychiatry is the application of the principles and practice of psychiatry for legal purposes, and that particular institution, Bridgewater, received from the trial courts of Massachusetts defendants charged with crimes whom someone thought might be mentally disordered, and the questions that we were asked to evaluate were whether the defendant was responsible at the time of the crime, whether he was ready for trial, and certain other issues. We had a caseload of, I believe, about 1,000 or 1,200 cases a year with those questions. My first year there, I didn't have very much help trying to see all of those people and was busy. The second year, I was able to recruit some colleagues, and additional staff began to do that, and so it was somewhat more manageable. And after 2 years of doing all of these evaluations and testifying in court on those cases, I then stopped doing that and spent my third year at Harvard principally involved in one particular case. I had been retained by the U.S. Department of Justice to work on the investigation of John Hinckley in connection with the attempted assassination of President Reagan. And what I was asked to do was to lead a team that evaluated Mr. Hinckley. And for the bulk of a year, I spent my time evaluating him, interviewing people whom he knew, and reading about him and talking to him and looking at all the evidence in that case. I did some research the same year, but he was principally my practice for that year. Then my fourth year at Harvard, I spent most of my time doing research on mentally disordered offenders, particularly a study that looked at men who were charged with some violent offense and who were referred for a psychiatric examination, and comparing those whose victims died and those whose victims didn't, and trying to look at what the general patterns were in the behavior of people who were assessed as to whether they were mentally disordered offenders and the kinds of mentally disordered offenders that were to be found. I did some consultation throughout those 4 years privately in other states and some in Massachusetts, and began to consult in both criminal and civil cases around the country. Then after those 4 years at Harvard, I was invited to move to Virginia and to take up a position at the University of Virginia, which had an institute known as the Institute of Law, Psychiatry, and Public Policy, and that institute is still in existence. I was asked to become the medical director of it and to assume responsibilities at that university, and initially went there as an associate professor of law, teaching in the law school, and an associate professor of psychiatry.
This entire video could potentially be him just breaking down why he is an expert.
Medical school.
I'm actually okay with it. I'm liking this history. Everyone in the chat freaking out, knowing this dude. I'm not familiar. This is awesome. I did do a little bit of a Google search here, but yeah, this is cool.
And was eventually promoted to professor of law and professor of behavioral medicine and psychiatry, teaching in both the law school and the medical school. My responsibilities there were really at all three of these institutions. At the law school, I taught courses in psychiatry and criminal law, law and psychiatry, criminal behavior, criminal violence, criminal behavior and public policy, and co-taught courses in some related areas like law and medicine or law and public health. In the medical school, I was responsible for directing the fellowship program in forensic psychiatry, which is something I'd also done at Harvard for a few years, which is to train psychiatrists in the subspecialty of forensic psychiatry so that they could spend a full year focusing on the legally important issues that psychiatrists are sometimes asked to address. So I ran the fellowship program at the med school, and at our clinic, which was based on hospital grounds, we would evaluate defendants referred from principally Virginia to be evaluated, and that was part of the Institute of Law, Psychiatry, and Public Policy, where my role was to run the forensic psychiatry clinic, to be responsible for training students who would come through the institute. These included law students, medical students, social work students, psychology graduate students, and to teach seminars there, show students how to do evaluations, and oversee or personally conduct evaluations there at the clinic. I was there at Virginia from 1982 until 1988, and then took a sabbatical leave for a year, and at that time went to California to be working on some writing about research that I'd done in the past, and decided to remain in California and did not return to the University of Virginia. And so since 1988, I've been in Newport Beach, California. I resigned from the University of Virginia faculty in 1989 after being away for a year, and since then have taught at UCLA. Today I'm clinical professor of psychiatry and biobehavioral sciences at UCLA, which is the University of California at Los Angeles. I am on the part-time faculty, which is what a clinical professor does, and most of my time is spent evaluating individuals in connection with various kinds of legal problems, and consulting to courts, consulting to attorneys, or consulting to law enforcement agencies and corporations, generally about the more unusual kinds of criminal behavior. And so today I have an unusual practice in which I see the more extreme forms of behavior that arise mostly in North America, occasionally outside this country, but always something rather unusual.
Are you a member of any professional societies?
Yes, I am.
Would you advise the jury of those societies, some of them?
Well, I'm a member of quite a few, but the organizations in which I've been most active are really just three. One's the American Psychiatric Association, in which connection I've served on a number of committees. I chaired the Committee on the Misuse and Abuse of Psychiatry in the United States. I've served on some other components of the organization. I've also been active in the American Academy of Forensic Sciences. That's an organization made up of forensic scientists from various disciplines: pathology, toxicology, forensic dentistry, and psychiatry, as well as others. And in that organization, I was the chair of what was then the psychiatry section for 3 terms. And then I spent a term on the executive committee of the overall organization. I had been involved in planning programs at various points for the organization, and have served on the editorial board of the Journal of Forensic Sciences, which the Academy publishes, and am quite active at their annual meetings, presenting papers, and participating in the meetings, lecturing from time to time. And then finally, the organization that I've probably been most active in is known as the American Academy of Psychiatry and the Law. That's an organization made up of those members of the National Psychiatric Organization with a special interest in the legal issues in psychiatry. And I became active in that organization even while I was still a medical student and not able to officially join. And since I've been able to be a member of it, I've served in most of the offices of the Academy. I'm currently in an office known as counselor. I've been the secretary for a couple terms. I've been a counselor before. I've been a vice president of it. And I've served on many of the committees over the years for the Academy, have lectured dozens of times at the annual meetings of the organization, served for, I think, 10 years on the editorial board of the Journal, and have been quite active in the affairs.
May I request that the bailiffs distribute to the jury copies of the curriculum? Do you have a reading? Doctor, I have taken the liberty of circulating copies of your curriculum vitae to members of the jury. I'll wait here, Tony. I think the attention of the jury probably will turn to page 9 of the curriculum, page 9. But have you published any scholarly works in professional journals?
Yes, I have.
And would you touch upon some of those which you think would be of particular interest in this procedure?
I don't have a copy of that in front of me.
Everybody's got a copy except you, so why don't you?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, okay. We're all set now.
Well, one of the principal areas of interest for me for many years has been that of sex offenses and sexual deviations. And I think the first journal article that I published on that subject has the misleading title, Toward Scientific Forensic Psychiatry. It's number 4 on page 10. That was actually a study that grew out of research I was doing on the behavior of rapists. And as I was looking at what was known about rape at the time, I found that the effort by psychiatrists, at least, to try to understand the behavior of offenders who committed that crime was not very scientific. They had failed to do even the most basic scientific things in conducting their studies, hadn't made use of even numbers to count up how many cases did which sorts of things, often hadn't asked the right questions. Even when they had enough cases to try to make some inference, they didn't do it according to the usual rules of science. And I was there trying to suggest some ways to improve the state of knowledge about sex offenses. Then number 13, which is about male homosexual prostitution, that was merely an effort to look at what was known at that time on the subject of men who make themselves available for sexual activities for hire, principally to other men. The next one specifically about unusual sexual behavior was number 18 on the investigation of autoerotic fatalities. That was the first of a series of articles that led to a book about individuals who managed to harm themselves, often fatally, while engaging in various kinds of masturbation that involves harming oneself or threatening oneself or taking chances to oneself. And that became a rather large study that I conducted along with Supervisory Special Agent Roy Hazelwood from the FBI Academy's Behavioral Science Unit, who's been a collaborator of mine on a number of these projects. Then there is another paper related to the same project, number 23, on sexual fatalities. That article was about how one can look at a death scene where someone has died and there appears to be sexual motivation or sexual activity at the time of the death. It's a discussion of how from the scene of death one can reconstruct the behavior and make inferences about what the intentions were of the individuals who were present at the time. Because sometimes it's difficult to know whether such a death is an accident or a homicide or even a suicide. And that was the focus of that paper. Then there's an article at 24, which is a study of the kinds of pornography sold in Times Square bookstores at the time. That grew out of a case in which a law firm representing a serial killer had a question about the use of particular kinds of sexual techniques in Bergen County, New Jersey, and in Manhattan. And the question asked of me was, what proportion of the people in that geographic region have a sexual interest in binding people with handcuffs and adhesive tape? And so...
yeah, the murder churches still stay monetized, guys.
Research assistant and I set out on a very limited budget to try to answer that question. And that required some innovative methods, including interviewing people who were part of that subculture. We found from the underground press advertisements for those who would perform bondage and domination services for a fee. We went to the places they did this and interviewed the proprietors and the people who did it. We went to the stores that sold such equipment and interviewed the people there about what kinds of equipment these practitioners used. And we took a random sample representative of one of the adults-only bookstores in Times Square, and with the available time, went to what turned out to be 4 stores and classified all of the relevant pornography as to what kinds of unusual sexual behaviors were portrayed, believing that that could be a rough index of how common various sexual deviations were, since presumably, like other industries, that industry would devote the most shelf space to its best-selling items. We would be able to have some rough measure of the relative frequency of various deviations from the amount of shelf space devoted to pictures that would appeal to people with that deviation. That particular study was published in the American Journal of Psychiatry, but an abstract of it, just a little summary, appeared in Psychology Today and led to members of the U.S. Congress contacting me to ask me to brief them on the state of pornography at the time. And that group then petitioned the president, who appointed or decided there would be a new commission on pornography. And so that seemed like a long road from Times Square bookstores to the White House on that study, but it seemed to have had some impact. Then the next item, number 25, on atypical autoerotic fatalities, was again a look at some particularly bizarre ways that people managed to die during masturbation, and ones that were confusing to medical examiners' offices or to homicide investigators who had a hard time seeing whether that this was an accident that had happened while someone was masturbating, because the scene was often so bizarre. Then there was a study at 29 about hearing impaired offenders, and as it turns out, most of those offenders were involved in sex offenses, and so that led to looking at deafness among sex offenders. Item 31 on detective magazines, subtitled Pornography for the Sexual Sadist.
Those old detective magazines fucked some dudes up, didn't it?
Support a theory that sexual sadists, that is, men who enjoy the suffering of victims.
Those kept coming up in the BTK doc that I just watched, the Confessions one.
And are sexually attracted to the suffering of others, would find particularly attractive the covers at that time of detective magazines. These are such monthlies as True Detective, Homicide Detective, Inside Detective. And we asked several sexually sadistic offenders about that, or had heard spontaneously from them, and learned that from their point of view, that was the most appealing kind of pornography, even though most of us didn't think of that as pornography. Some of these men thought that what was sold in adults-only bookstores was faked from their point of view, but what was on the covers of these magazines was more appealing. And we classified the covers of the magazines and looked at what was inside, what they were selling, who they were trying to appeal to. The upshot of it all is that not too long after the article came out, things changed. We had found that the covers generally portrayed a woman bound, gagged, looking sexy because some part of her underwear or her anatomy was exposed, being threatened by a man with a weapon. And we pointed out that this appealed to these men who were committing such crimes. And very soon thereafter, the whole industry changed so that instead of...
Shit, hold on. Say no to globalism. Going to come through with some support. Love it. Supporting the cursey words. Boom. And we have some cursey words that come through here, not only from me, but also just in general discussion, you know, from a psychiatrist who's being professional while he does it, but at the same time, these words trigger YouTube's algorithm to demonetize a lot of this stuff. But thank you so much. Say no to globalism. You're absolutely amazing. Always rolling through. See them drinks coming out, the love coming out in chat. Murder Church, baby. Thank you so much. Love it. Yeah, right there. Stevie knows.
Showing a sexy woman threatened and bound, they began to show a sexy woman with a gun, which was a step in the right direction, and improved what they were marketing there, and made it so that it would no longer be appealing to that particular group of offenders. Then the next item is number 33 on mass serial and sensational homicides. That really was a lecture that I gave at a meeting. I think it was at the New York Academy of Sciences or the New York Academy of Medicine, and their journal published that article, and that simply described the patterns generally observed among serial killers and mass murderers and certain other offender groups. Number 38 on pornography and obscenity was a survey of somewhat over 5,000 books and magazines and films sold in 4 American cities, and that grew out of work.
Huh?
This is gun country.
Done by the Pornography.
I'll save that one for Say No to Globalism.
This is gun country.
Commission, where investigators went out and categorized all of these items, and then...
Uh-oh, Bob coming in with the fire.
2 of us wrote up the results and published them in a law review, the Michigan Journal of Law Reform. Item 40 on the sexually sadistic criminal and his offenses was the first report to come out of a study of men who were committing sexually sadistic crimes. That report, I believe, was on the first 25 or 30, right, the first 30 of the offenders we studied, who together were responsible for, as I recall, about 125 murders. And we were looking at the behavior patterns of these men, how they conducted their offenses, how they would get away with repetitive offenses for so long. Item 44 on the criminal sexual sadist grows from the same study. This one's focused on how law enforcement officials can better investigate these crimes, and is being published in the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin, I think, this month. Item number 45 on patterns among mentally disordered offenders is on the question of the various kinds of mentally disordered offenders that exist, and explores the relationship between mental disorder on the one hand and crime on the other, and divides mentally disordered offenders into several types, because as it turns out, there are times at which a mental disorder is merely a coincidence to a crime, people who happen to be mentally ill and happen also to commit crimes, but there's no relation. There are times that committing crimes results in a mental disorder because people get depressed when they're in prison or because they've killed a loved one. There are times that a mental disorder actually leads to a crime because people are hearing voices tell them to commit a crime or have very sick ideas because of a schizophrenic illness, say, that relates to their committing a crime. And there are still other patterns. And so this particular paper was directed at trying to help clarify the relationship between those two. Now, in addition to those, which are each of which have something to do with, or most of which have something to do with sexual behavior of the more extreme forms. There are other articles here that deal more generally with homicide or with violent offenses, but don't bear so particular a relationship to this case as the ones that have to do with sexual abnormalities.
Have you contributed to any scholarly books?
Yes, I have.
Would you touch on those? I know there's quite a list, perhaps touching on those that you think might be of particular interest with respect to this case.
Well, Hazelwood and I did publish a book, as I mentioned earlier, on these masturbation-related deaths, and that goes into some detail on the paraphilias and how sexual deviations, known as paraphilias, underlie the forms of experimentation sexually that led to these deaths. Item number 3 was really the report from that project I did my 4th year at Harvard that compared mentally disordered offenders of various kinds. The book chapters beginning on page 14. The second chapter on rapist behavior is the one that I was working on when I wrote that article on the scientific issues in the field. The chapter listed at number 6, Sex Offenses, Behavioral Aspects, for the Encyclopedia of Crime and Justice, was an effort to summarize the state of knowledge of the time about why it is that people engage in various kinds of sex offenses and the relationship between behavior patterns in people and any sex offenses they may commit. Item 8 on sex offender profiling by the FBI was a description of how the experts within the FBI were at that time conducting what was called profiling, a kind of crime scene analysis in which from scene evidence one draws inferences about the kind of offender who committed the offense. Item 9 on hypothetical criteria for the prediction of individual criminality deals with predicting future crimes, and that has some emphasis on sex offenses. Item 10 on aversion therapy was mostly about a treatment. It's about a particular kind of treatment that has as one of its principal uses the treatment of sex offenses, or at least that's what I emphasized in the chapter. That was for the Social Science Encyclopedia. Then item 11 is a chapter on male genital exhibitionism for a forensic psychiatry textbook, and that is a summary of what was known then about men who exposed themselves to others. Item 12 happened to be my personal view in the Pornography Commission report, where we each had an opportunity to say what we individually thought, each of the members of the commission. Item 13 on patterns in human violence contains a small section on the types of serial killers. And item 16 has to do with how people can defend themselves against very determined, dangerous offenders who can't be kept in captivity.
Can you tell us what research projects you have participated in?
Well, depending on what one means by research, most of what I've just referred to and all of the other publications that I didn't mention involve some kind of research activity. But usually in the sciences, when we talk about research, we mean a project in which one is going to actually be collecting original data of a kind that aren't already in existence. Rather than looking something up in a book or summarizing what other people have studied, we mean going and creating new knowledge. And there have been several kinds of research of that sort that I've been involved with. The 3 projects of my own where I received external funding to help do the research were the study I mentioned of mentally disordered offenders, a study that I did for my doctoral dissertation on the forms of psychiatric treatment and how they're used, and a large study of individuals who pursue famous people, in which we studied mentally disordered individuals who write to or stalk Hollywood celebrities and members of the United States Congress. We happened to study celebrity stalkers and congressional stalkers because that's where the best data were to do the research. But I've also consulted on other people's large research projects and have done smaller research projects of my own. They include consulting to someone else's study of the movement of mentally disordered offenders between mental health and correctional institutions, a study of the uses of children in the creation of pornography, and a study of the biological bases for criminality. My own other research, besides the things I've mentioned, has included studies looking at various aspects of the sexual underground, studies of various aspects of the violent underground, the aspects of our culture that are related to the promotion of violence and criminal activities, and quite a few different projects that look at particular kinds of offender groups. So most of my research has been about sex and violence in one form or another.
In addition to the materials you've talked about, the publications in scholarly journals and in books, your vitae, starting at page 15, it lists as well numerous participations in committee publications, audio tape journal lectures, in which you have conducted, works you have edited, essays and letters to the editor in which you have participated or prepared, book reviews in which you have reviewed the scholarly books, and numerous original presentations at national and international meetings. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And as one would go through that, one would see in a number of those situations areas which you addressed, which touch on homicide and various sexual deviations. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Do you have specialized experience concerning sexual deviations and sex offenses?
Yes, I do.
Would you share some of that with the jury?
Well, in addition to the kinds of research and writing that I've already mentioned, I've had the opportunity through the positions that I've held to see quite a few sex offenders over the years. At Bridgewater, we often had people who were charged with various kinds of sex offenses come through the institution. At the University of Virginia Clinic, partly because of my interest in sex offenses, we accepted quite a few cases of individuals who were charged with various sex offenses. And my private consulting practice has always had some focus on various types of sex offenses. Because I am known to have this interest, one of the areas that I do the most work with law enforcement agencies about concerns the more extreme forms of sexual behavior. And I've had the opportunity since about 1980 to work closely with the FBI Academy's Behavioral Science Unit, which is now part of what's called the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. I began working with them in I think, 1980 and became formally a consultant in 1981 and have been on retainer the last several years to work, I believe it's now 2 days a month, for that unit. And there it's been my privilege to hear about a great many cases of various kinds of unusual sexual behavior. And partly because of that affiliation and also because of similar work that I now do for the New York State Police as a member of their forensic sciences unit, I have occasion to often speak to those who are investigating individuals suspected of or who in fact are known to have committed unusual kinds of sex crimes. So there isn't a week that goes by that I don't hear about some extreme and outrageous kind of sexual behavior from someone who is concerned that it's going on in their community. And I, on some of those occasions, have the opportunity to review quite a bit of evidence and to really study the case. I also, through the projects that I've done in connection with members of the FBI, have had a chance to investigate in great detail a number of particular kinds of sex offenses, and some of those studies are ongoing. Because of the FBI's position in the system of looking at these cases and referring them, and because I've had the opportunity to be their psychiatrist during this period, I've had a chance to look at kinds of cases that one could never hope to see more than once in a career if one were to confine oneself to a particular geographic region. But they receive cases from all over the world, and so they, and through them, I have had a chance to see quite a bit of this.
Do you have specialized experience concerning serial killers?
Yes, I do.
Would you please tell the jury what experience you have had concerning serial killers?
Well, I've had occasion to consult on a number of cases in which those individuals charged with serial killings were being prosecuted. I've had occasion to do that on behalf of defense attorneys and on behalf of prosecutors, and to testify in a few of the cases involving serial killers. I've also had the opportunity to study serial killers through the projects that I've already alluded to. One of the ongoing studies is a study of sexually sadistic offenders, and as it turns out, most of the subjects in our study are serial killers, and so we've been able to study them in great depth through that project, which is in collaboration with Special Agent Hazelwood from the FBI and Janet Warren. Dr. Warren's at the University of Virginia, at the same institute I'd been at. And we continue to study individuals as we find them who are candidates for that project. And then, of course, through the work that I've done with the FBI, I have occasion to hear a great deal about all of the serial murder cases that they become involved in investigating. And from time to time, I play some role in that investigation or in advising them, though I don't mean to overstate that. They are the experts on profiling, and I merely help them from time to time in parts of what they do.
Do you have specialized experience in assessing whether an offender was legally sane or insane at the time of the commission of a particular crime?
Yes, I do.
And would you please tell the jury what experience you have had in assessing whether an offender was legally sane or insane at the time of the commission of a criminal act?
Well, that's one of the fundamental questions in forensic psychiatry, and it's an area that if one practices forensic psychiatry in the criminal courts or in any criminal corrections type institution, one encounters all the time. That was one of my main jobs for the years that I was at Bridgewater. It was certainly a major part of my task in the Hinckley case. It was a major part of the research I did the year after that. It was a major part of what we did at the University of Virginia Forensic Clinic, and it's always been a large fraction of my consulting practice to assess individuals concerning their responsibility at the time of a crime. So that has probably occupied somewhere between 20 and 50% of my professional life since 1978, 77 actually.
Have you testified in court before?
Oh, yes.
And how often?
Well, hundreds of times on a variety of issues, but I lost count a long time ago.
Right, the number too high?
Yes.
Right. Have you testified in murder cases before?
Yes.
And how often?
I think in, well, I've examined hundreds of murderers, and perhaps as many as 1,000, but not all of those have come to any trial. And I think, or I haven't been called to all of them. And I think I've testified in, well, certainly scores, maybe 50 or 100 murder trials. I don't have any real way to count them, I'm sorry to say.
Can you tell us whether you have testified on occasion for the state and or for the defense?
Oh, yes, I've testified for both sides.
Have you testified in any cases that might be familiar to the jury or the court?
Yes.
Would you tell us those?
Well, the Hinckley case I've already alluded to. I've also testified in a case involving a man named Walter Leroy Moody, who was eventually convicted of the series of mail bombs that killed a civil rights lawyer in Savannah, Georgia, and a U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals judge for the 11th Circuit, Judge Robert Vance. He'd also sent mail bombs to some NAACP offices in Florida and Georgia. I testified in the trial of Arthur Shawcross, a man convicted now for serial killings of prostitutes in the Rochester, New York area. I testified just last week or the week before at an appeal hearing concerning William Bonin, the freeway killer, a serial killer of men in the Los Angeles and Orange County areas. I've testified in some cases involving mass murderers, a man named George Banks who killed 13 in the Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania area, a woman named Sylvia Segrist who shot 10 people at the Springfield Mall, also in Pennsylvania, a man who did one of the schoolyard shootings in South Carolina named Wilson. Those are the ones that come to mind.
Dr. Dietz, when were you first contacted in this case?
Sometime in December 1991.
And what was the nature of that contact?
The first contact was a telephone call from you, Mr. McCann.
And did you eventually agree to
All
conduct
right.
an evaluation
We're getting into it. 45 minutes.
Attorney's office of the defendant in this case?
Yes, I did.
Were there any ground rules agreed upon for your evaluation?
Yes, there were.
And would you share those with the jury?
Well, in the initial discussions that we had, Mr. McCann asked me if I would be available and willing to evaluate Mr. Dahmer. And I told him that I would enjoy the opportunity to evaluate Mr. Dahmer, but there were certain conditions that we would have to agree on before I could do that. One of those conditions was that I'd have free access to any information that the government had acquired. And Mr. McCann volunteered to make everything available to me that the government had learned in the course of its investigation of Mr. Dahmer. A second condition was that I be free to testify for either side, that if at the conclusion of my evaluation my findings were such that the defense thought I would be a favorable witness, that I would be free to testify for them if they asked me to. and that if my findings were such that Mr. McCann thought that he would like to call me as a witness, that I'd be free to do that too. And finally, we discussed payment and agreed on a budget because Mr. McCann told me that the county funds were limited and that we would have to agree on how much.
Well, sweet. Awesome. Hope 8 Fear coming through again. Thank you so much. Always being amazing in here. Gifting out a membership, and none other than Mind of Monsters is going to scoop that up. Love that. Hell yeah. Give out some love there in the chat, everybody. Give out them drinks. And but probably nothings as well. Thank you so much. I'm going to see if I can summon Holly Berry. Hold on. Let's see. Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Hope 8 Fear. Always, always.
Could be spent on this, and we did agree.
And what did you subsequently do to conduct that evaluation of the defendant?
The first thing I did was to obtain various documents and to review those documents. The documents didn't arrive all at once. They continued to come by the carton, but they included eventually what I believe to be all of the police reports that concern Jeffrey Dahmer, all of the police reports that were interviews with witnesses who had actually observed Mr. Dahmer or spoken to him at any time in his life, all the police reports that were from people who might have actually known something about Jeffrey Dahmer, though at the time they were sent to me, it wasn't always clear if they were talking about the correct person or not. All of those investigative reports that had to do with the investigations at the scenes of various crimes, all of those photographs that were taken by Mr. Dahmer and recovered during the investigation, and all of those photographs taken by police in the course of their investigation, all of the documents that professionals or administrators had prepared about Mr. Dahmer over the years, such as his military records, his school records, his medical records, counseling records of various kinds, the correctional records about him, the court records about him. The testing that had been done since his arrest and the results of that, the reports of all of the people who had examined him since his arrest, the notes of at least Dr. Fosdal and Dr. Becker and Dr. Berlin, the notes of those who had attempted to treat him in the past, such as Dr. Rosen and Dr. Crowley. Offhand, those are the documents that come to mind. I may be omitting some.
Did there come a time that you met with the defendant?
Yes.
And would you tell the jury when that was and where that was?
Well, now I think we get into the potential of my voir dire, of the doctor's expertise. I choose not to exercise that voir dire and accept Dr. Dietz as an expert.
Very well. You may proceed, Mr. McCann.
Can you tell us on what day or days that you met with the defendant?
I met with him on 3 days in January of 1992. One of them was the 6th.
Was it the 6th, 7th, and 8th?
I think that's correct, yes.
And did you meet with him in a room off this very courtroom?
Yes.
And while that was being conducted, were you alone with him?
I was alone in the room with Mr. Dahmer. However, there were other people present outside the room.
And how many hours did you spend in those 3 days that you met with the defendant? How many hours in total did you spend with him?
Approximately 18 hours.
And the subject basically of the discussion was his background, his involvement in the various offenses that transpired, and other matters that were of interest to you in preparing a psychiatric evaluation. Would that be basically accurate in the broad term?
That's true.
Before we discuss each of the separate homicides, would you please tell us how a forensic psychiatrist goes about making an assessment that a defendant does or does not?
Oh, there we go. Shannon Moore just became a buzzed and confused member. That's what I want to see. Hell yeah. Thank you, Shannon. Appreciate it. Show you a little love. Let me show you a little love. First of all, give the beers out to Shannon, everybody. Welcome her in.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And I love it. Yeah, get the satisfying pours early. It's about noon. That's about time to get a drink in you, if you ask me. I don't care what anybody says. Huh? Huh?
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
That's what I'm saying. Welcome. Thank you so much. You're in. You are now in for these Tuesday shows. I'm telling you, anybody that is not a member right now, you're going to want to be. I'm putting a lot of work into it. Tuesday comes and it sucks, let me know. Be like, this sucks. I'm on out. I'm getting out of here. This month's up, I'm out of here. No, you're not going to say that. You're going to be like, oh shit. Oh shit. Oh shit. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Seriously, Shannon.
Not appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct at the time of the criminal acts.
Well, it's clear to the record his opinion of what a forensic psychiatrist does. Otherwise, I object to the following question. You may answer that.
The most important thing is to do as much as the resources permit to try to learn about the defendant and the defendant's mental state at the time of the charged offenses. For example, in addition to the documents that I mentioned reviewing and my examination of Mr. Dahmer, I also visited some of the places that Mr. Dahmer had visited around the time of his crimes, because those visits might give me some insight into his mental state at the time of the crimes. By seeing his environment, I know a bit more about what he's responding to in the world, and sometimes there are important observations that can be made. So I went to the apartment building where Mr. Dahmer had committed the larger number of offenses. I went to some of the places where he had met his victims and recruited them, such as the gay bars. I went out with investigators from the district attorney's office to see what the locations were like and what the atmosphere was like. I looked at the pornography that had been confiscated from Mr. Dahmer, both on an earlier occasion when he was arrested for something else and at the time of the present arrest. I looked at selections of pornographic videos with Mr. Dahmer. He directed me to particular passages, and at a couple horror films also that we watched portions of together. Anything that could help me understand his mental state at the time of the crimes was germane to what it was I wished to do. But generally, when a forensic psychiatrist seeks to evaluate whether a defendant appreciated the wrongfulness of his conduct at the time of the crime, the...
Tango Crochet, going to come through, gifting out another membership. Somebody, another lucky individual is going to be in for the Tuesday shows. Gail, welcome to being a Publicly Buzzed member. I love it. I'm going to give you all the love. I'm going to give them to you. Here we go. Absolutely amazing. Turn them off there. There you go. Satisfying pours for Gail. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. And Tango Crochet, thank you. Unbelievable. Yeah, I want as many people to be in for Tuesday as possible. It's going to be awesome. If you're not in for the live Tuesday, you're going to get that a week later, an edited version. Okay, I'm telling you, you're going to remember. The members only. I'm going to use it again. I'm using the word. It's going to be intimate. It's going to be an intimate evening. That's not the right word. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be dope. You're going to dig it.
Questions that have to be addressed are, first, whether the defendant had any mental condition that could possibly have interfered with his ability to appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct. Some mental disorders can affect a defendant's ability to appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct. Some can't possibly do it, and some can only do it under particular circumstances. And so one has to look for what mental disorders there are and see if he has any of the kind that might impair his appreciation of wrongfulness at the time of a crime. Secondly, one has to look for each crime at whether the behavior of the defendant at the time indicates an awareness, an appreciation in particular, of the wrongfulness of his conduct. And thirdly, or lastly rather, one has to look at what the defendant says his awareness was or his thoughts were at the time. But behavior during a crime always speaks more loudly than defendant's statements after a crime. And so looking at the behavior during the crime, as far as one can tell it, becomes quite important. Unfortunately, we often have to rely on what defendants say about behavior during a crime, particularly in unwitnessed homicides, because there may not be any other living witness. And in order to try to verify what defendants say at the time of a crime, in which there are not other living witnesses, we look at physical evidence, we look at the setting in which it occurred, we look at their behavior at other times. And because of that need to look at behavior at other times, it even becomes important to look at the life history and what other people have observed about a defendant's behavior.
Without going into the details in each case at this time, can you please tell the jury some of the kinds of evidence you used in determining whether Mr. Dahmer appreciated the wrongfulness of his conduct at the time of the commission of the offenses to which he has pled guilty?
Well, some examples in broad strokes only of the kinds of evidence that I considered in determining whether Mr. Dahmer appreciated the wrongfulness of his conduct at the time of these crimes were, first, I began to ask him one by one, at the time that he killed James Dockstader, for example, did he appreciate that what he was doing was wrong? And Mr. Dahmer said, yes, he did. And I asked him that for another victim. And he said, yes, he did, and another, and yes, he did. And he then said that the answer would be the same for all of them, that at the time of the crime, he appreciated the wrongfulness of what he was doing. But this is a statement made by Mr. Dahmer in January '92. There have been events in between, and I never rely solely on what a defendant says if I have the opportunity to look beyond that. And so that wasn't the end of my assessment. I also looked at what other evidence there was. A second example was that Mr. Dahmer, in at least some of the instances, took steps to reduce the chances that he would be the last individual seen with a victim. So, for example, there are instances in which he sought a particular person who was alone rather than with someone else. There are multiple reasons for doing that. One of them is to be able to isolate someone alone. And of course, he always took his victims someplace where he was alone with them. And he took steps in some instances to ensure that whoever drove him there, such as a taxi driver or friends of the victim, didn't see exactly where he and the victim were going, but rather would be dropped off a few blocks away so that they wouldn't be able to identify the particular address. That's an indication that at those times that he did those things, he knew that what he was going to do was wrong and that he wanted to avoid detection for what he already planned to do. Another kind of example is that he, in fact, always committed the charged crimes, namely the homicides, while alone with victims. None of the charged homicides was done in the presence of any other witness. None was done in public view. None was done in a way that others would be able to see him, and by taking them to a private place and by, in fact, seeking privacy with him, he's showing an awareness that it's wrong to do these things with people where you will be observed. Yet another kind of example is Mr. Dahmer's statements on a number of occasions, including statements to me more than once, that he drank to overcome inhibitions about killing the victims. He would drink at several intervals during the course of time with the victim, but here I'm addressing the aspect that because he was inhibited against killing them and found that aspect of his behavior distasteful, he would purposely drink more in order to overcome his inhibition against doing a part of this that he didn't like, didn't seek out, and in fact felt uncomfortable about. His discomfort with the killing is an indication that he knew that killing was wrong.
Just a minute, please. The reporter has to change paper. Okay, you may proceed.
Yet another example is that Mr. Dahmer reported, and his behavior showed, that at various times when he was drugging a victim or staying with a drugged victim or in fact killing a victim or being with an already dead victim or dismembering a victim or disposing of evidence of a killing, he would at all those various times be aware and take steps to prevent being observed by other parties who might report him to the police. That's because he knew at each of those stages that what he was doing was wrong, and that if he were detected doing those things, he would be in trouble for it. And so he went to some lengths to try to prevent other people from seeing him do any of those things, including the killings, which is the aspect with which he's charged. And yet another example in general terms of the kinds of evidence that I looked for to make this assessment was that evidence that indicates that he, at the time of these events, sought to destroy incriminating evidence by disposing victims' clothing, parts of victims, in many instances their identification, and even those identity cards that he still retained, he told me he meant to get rid of. He just hadn't gotten to that yet. But he wanted to rid himself of much of the incriminating evidence, though he also retained mementos that could incriminate him. Now, those are merely some examples in broad outline of the sorts of evidence of behavior at the time of a crime that one has to look at in trying to make such an assessment.
That doesn't exhaust the evidence on which your opinion is based, and to do that you would have to look, and you will, at each of the separate cases. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Dr. Dietz, before we get into the details of each case, can you tell us how a forensic psychiatrist goes about determining that a person possesses or lacks substantial capacity to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law?
This is a more difficult task. One goes about it in the same general way, which is first to determine whether the individual has any mental disorder that might, under some circumstance, impair an individual's ability to conform his conduct to the requirements of the law. Some mental disorders, psychiatrists would be in great agreement, can never do that, can never have that effect. Other mental disorders, we would agree, could have that effect, and there's some for which there wouldn't be agreement, and some for which psychiatrists would say, well, that kind of condition could, under some circumstances, impair a person that way. So the first step is to look at whether there's a relevant disorder that might impair a person in that particular way that the law requires that we examine. The second step is to look at the defendant's behavior during the time of the crimes to see whether the behavior at that time and at other times tells us whether the individual had the capacity to conform his conduct to legal requirements or didn't. And in the process of that, one of the things we do is to ask defendants how they subjectively perceived themselves at that time. And once again, behavior speaks more loudly, insofar as we can find it, identify it, than defendant statements, but we try to consider all of this.
And in terms of any particular considerations, does that exhaust the evidence that you consider with respect to conformity, or will there be, as you touch on each case, will you address that the facts on each case separately that address the issue of conformity?
I will case by case describe the evidence that I relied on, but in general there was a kind of evidence common to a number of cases that are the kinds of evidence that I directed my attention to in making that assessment. And the general kinds of evidence, which are just examples, include such things as Mr. Dahmer's own statements to me. I asked him, once again, starting with Mr. Dockstader, whether if at the time he was killing Mr. Dockstader, his grandmother had walked in, or some other witness, would he have killed him nonetheless? And he said no, that he wouldn't have if somebody had walked in on him. Likewise, I asked him if Mr. Dockstader had agreed to stay with him for a few weeks, would he have killed him? And he said no, he wouldn't have killed him. Well, as I asked him that for several victims, he then said that the answer would be the same for all the rest, that at the time of all of these killings for which he's charged, if his grandmother or if someone else had walked in, he would not have done the killing. And likewise, if the victim had agreed voluntarily to stay with him, he would not have done the killing. Now, assuming that that's correct, that's an indication that he could control his behavior. That is, that if detection were imminent, he would have stopped. Or that if he could have obtained the company of these men and sexual contact with them with less drastic means, he would have stopped. There was no force pushing him to kill. There was merely a desire to spend more time with the victim. And had that been possible through some other means, the killing would have become irrelevant to him. A second kind of evidence that bears on the capacity of Mr. Dahmer to control his conduct is that he did not engage in these behaviors without reflection. On each occasion, he made preparations for doing those acts that led up to a murder, including, not in each case, but from time to time, having powderized the tablets in advance. On most of the occasions, he had already crushed a tablet or several tablets and had it ready so that he could drug the victims when he brought them back. So before he even went out, he prepared the drug. On some occasions, he would prepare himself for going out to recruit a victim by watching particular scenes and videotapes that he had, both pornographic videos and horror films, which he'd use to pump himself up and to get himself in the proper mood to go out looking for a victim. He would, of course, devote time to finding an attractive victim, because he always knew the physique that he was looking for For Mr. Dahmer, it was a particular kind of masculine physique that was most appealing to him. And he would go out hoping to find someone with that kind of physique whom he could bring back to where he would be in private with him. And he would devote time to that surveillance for an attractive, appropriate person to bring back. And on a number of occasions, he had a conscious awareness, he later reported, of planning to kill them even as he's on the way back with the victim. In every instance, he drugged the victim before committing those acts that resulted in the victim's death. And all of that preparation, from preparing the tablet in advance or having the equipment handy that he would need, finding the attractive victim, bringing them back, whatever preparations he made with them once they were with him, all of that is an indication that these behaviors were not impulsive. The killing was never an impulsive act.
Oh shit, we got a gifted out membership right now by Post-Punk Mama going to give it out. Who's going to grab that thing? Hippiporium. What's going on? Welcome in, everybody. Give out some beers, first of all.
I'm sober enough to know what I'm doing, and I'm drunk enough to really enjoy doing it.
Satisfying pours right there on the screen for everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Also, got a...
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, gonna be good. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, entering the chat right now, documenting Austin, is going to be joining us for Feral Friday this Friday night. Me and Dan, it's going to be a good one. Yeah, it's going to be cool. Make sure everybody tunes in. We're going to be getting out some graphics this week, pumping everybody up, getting everybody excited. Make sure you're following on Publicly Buzzed on Twitter if you're not, Facebook, all the socials, and I'll see the beers in the chat. What another great Murder Church here today, week 17. We still got another 10 minutes or so of this video. We'll probably wrap it up. I'm going to be releasing you guys maybe just slightly early today. I'm sure the next video is going to be a slight bit longer, and I try to get out of here a little bit before 1 usually on Sundays. So yeah, we'll probably let everyone out just a little bit early. But again, thank you all that has come through today. It's been again an amazing morning. I'm glad everyone can start your week, start your mornings on Sunday with Publicly Buzzed, and you don't understand how much that actually means to us here in J-Buzz Nation and J-Bo Nation. I know Jay's always saying it as well on his streams. We appreciate the hell out of you guys, and I think you guys really, really actually do. I think you can feel it. I think you can feel it here in this community, quite frankly. But yeah, thank you all so much for coming through here, hanging out. And yeah, I know that, your time is very important. That's what I'm really trying to get to. Me, in general, if I'm going to go out and look for some entertainment, right, I want that shit to hit. I want it to be fire. So the fact that you guys are here and you're letting us entertain you, in the true crime community, watching a Jeffrey Dahmer trial, right? I've said it all the time. Watching this, it's trigger warning stuff. This stuff will get to you if you let it, but at the same time, if it's too much, step away, take a break. Totally acceptable, and something that we say here again on Jay's channel all the time. If you need to, just step away. That's something because this stuff is very, very daunting. But yeah, thanks everyone for hanging out. Appreciate it. See Donnie still hanging out here. City Kitty, Crime Spies, Jay coming through. Yeah, I just can't say how much I appreciate the hell out of it, guys. Thank you all.
It was always a planned and deliberated act, though sometimes he said the actual decision to kill was made only a matter of an hour or 20 minutes or half an hour or some specific time before the killing. In other instances, he knew before he was even home with the victim that he would kill that victim. So none of it was impulsive, none of the killings. Yet another kind of behavior or type of evidence one looks at is the timing of offenses. That is, does an individual commit offenses randomly with respect to time, as one might expect if someone could not control their behavior or couldn't conform their behavior to the law, or do they confine their behavior to those times when it best suits them? In Mr. Dahmer's case, he generally liked to confine himself to weekends, And there was a simple practical reason for that, which is that because he worked nights and had already received some absences, particularly toward the end, and didn't want to overdo his risk-taking about losing his job, he would like to be able to spend a lot of time with his victims, and the way he could maximize the time he spent with victims was to bring them home on a Friday night, so he would have all that night and all day Saturday and all night Saturday before he'd have to go to work Sunday evening to spend with the victim or to spend destroying the evidence, because it was a very time-consuming process. And so he would confine his behavior often, but not always, to cruising for victims on Friday and Saturday evenings, rather than engaging in victimization randomly. Likewise, one looks at whether the distribution of the crimes geographically, spatially, is random, or whether it shows a pattern in which the defendant controls when he commits his crimes. And that's particularly telling in this instance, because as opposed to someone out of control who commits crimes wherever they happen to have the urge, Mr. Dahmer always commits the offenses with which he's charged at a place of his choosing behind closed doors. He never committed homicides while with an attractive man with the right physique in a peep show booth or in a bathhouse, even though sometimes in the bathhouses he had them drugged and could readily have done so, except he would have had the disposal problem. He controls himself not to kill them in that setting. Only when they are somewhere else where he has complete control behind closed doors does he engage in homicide. And of course, he learned after an uncharged offense that it was a problem to dispose of a corpse on someone else's property, as at the Ambassador Hotel. He had to buy the suitcase and take the body home and so on, and that made it more difficult. So the distribution spatially of where the killings occur is an indication of his ability to conform his behavior to the requirements of the law and to delay this process until it meets his practical needs for doing this privately. The evidence I already alluded to of Mr. Dahmer purposely drinking to overcome his inhibitions against killing is, in addition to being evidence of his knowledge of the wrongfulness of it, evidence of his capacity to conform his behavior, in that it shows that he had to take this additional step to overcome his natural inhibition against the killing. If he had an impulse to kill or a compulsion to kill, he wouldn't have to drink alcohol to overcome it. He only has to drink alcohol to overcome it because he's inhibited against killing. So his drinking more alcohol to overcome his inhibition against killing is very important evidence that there was no compulsion to kill and no impulse to kill, and that he could conform his behavior and had to drink alcohol to help himself do the crime that he'd rather not have done because of the distaste of the killing part.
Bob is convinced that this dude is a sociopath. Calling it early.
Those are examples of the sorts of evidence that I looked for in evaluating each crime.
Does that exhaust the evidence on which your opinion is based, or will you have to touch, as you go through each case, touch on additional items?
One has to look at each case and the evidence surrounding each charged offense.
Have you reached any diagnostic opinions regarding Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes, I have.
And what are they?
Well, in my opinion, Mr. Dahmer suffers from two kinds of mental disorder. The first is technically described today as alcohol dependence, which is the current term used for alcoholism. And the diagnostic manual contains a scale for rating the severity of alcohol dependence. And I think the fairest ratings for Mr. Dahmer would be that his alcohol dependence prior to his arrest was at a mild to moderate level. The second kind of mental disorder that I diagnosed is what is technically known as a paraphilia, which is the current term for sexual deviation. Sexual deviations were the term last used, and before that, a term that was often used in the professions was that of perversions. But psychiatry sought to get away from that term because it's important to distinguish sexual deviations of the kind that we're now talking about from homosexuality, which is not considered a perversion or a sexual deviation or a paraphilia. And so in part to move away from an older view that could confuse homosexuality with all of this, psychiatry has changed the terms, and it's been an important move for the profession. By coincidence, it happens that Mr. Dahmer is gay, but that has nothing to do with what I'm describing as paraphilias, which is something else altogether.
What does the term paraphilia mean?
Well, actually, Doctor, with all due respect, I missed one word you said, and I'm going to ask the reporter to repeat your whole answer back so I make sure I heard that one word.
Okay, why don't we do that, and then we're going to take a recess.
Fine.
Good.
Right in the middle of the sentence, that's the problem.
Well, in my opinion, Mr. Dahmer suffers from two kinds of mental disorder. The first is clinically described today as alcohol dependence, which is the current term used for alcoholism. And the diagnostic manual contains a scale for rating the severity of alcohol dependence. And I think the fairest ratings for Mr. Dahmer would be his alcohol dependence prior to his arrest was at a mild to moderate level. The second kind of mental disorder that I diagnosed is what is technically known as a paraphilia, which is the current term for sexual deviation. Sexual deviations were the term last used, and before that, the term that was often used in the profession was that of perversions. But psychiatry sought to get away from that term because it's important to distinguish sexual deviations of the kind that we're now talking about from homosexuality, which is not considered a perversion or a sexual deviation or a paraphilia, as so in part to move away from an older view that could confuse homosexuality with all of this. Psychiatrists changed the terms, and it's been an important move for the profession. By coincidence, it happens that Mr. Dahmer is gay, but that has nothing to do with what I'm describing as paraphilias, which is something else.
Thank you. Court's in recess.
All right, that is going to wrap up Murder Church for today. Yeah, we're going into Dr. Park Dietz Part 2 next week. Another hour and 12. Let's see how long he's on the stand. See if he's going to have a marathon run like Fosdell did. Yeah, it looks like it. Here's a Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, Part 6, Part 7, Part 8. It looks like we're going to be hanging out with Mr. Dietz, the potential allegedly sociopath, Bob Motta thinks, anyways, for a couple of weeks here on Murder Church. So we're going to have to get comfortable with this individual. He spent 18 hours. I was looking a little bit of, I wasn't familiar, everybody in the chat started freaking out. 18-hour interview with Dahmer. We're going to be getting into some deep details about that. Again, we'll start out with that Part 2 next week, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all so much. Appreciate the hell out of it. Yeah, spread the word for Murder Church. Every single week, this is growing and getting a little bit bigger. Looks like we're going to get a little bit of Defense Diaries. Bob Mata hanging out from CrimeCon live. Possibly an interview. That's awesome. He's going to be hanging out with Jay. It also seems this week. So hell yeah. Documenting Austin will be again the Sunday Feral Friday guest. We're going to be hanging out, talking a little bit of what he does over. And anybody, please follow him on Twitter as well. I should have that ready. Hold on, let me get him up here real quick. Go ahead and give him some love. But yeah, I really appreciate everyone for hanging out today, per usual. And I will see everybody. Now, listen, if you're not a member, you're going to want to become a member for Tuesdays, guys. Tuesdays is going to be for members only. Okay? Yeah, follow Documenting Austin on Twitter. Tuesdays. I'm telling you right now. Killers you haven't heard about. That's what I'm going to be delivering on a members only stream every Tuesday. And then the following Tuesday, that will be an edited video that will be for the public. Okay? That Tuesday... that is live for members only. That is going to be a very special one, folks. You're going to want to be in your seats, hanging out, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Get ready. Austin, thank you for modding all day. Jamie, thank you for modding all day. Everyone that came through here, appreciate it. Joe Jackalone, thank you for coming through here, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody that did not see the live stream, the interview from last night, let me link that real quick, first of all. We had an absolutely great interview with Joe last night. Amazing. He is really easy and cool to talk to. I always get a little nervous before I do something like that. And when the individuals are cool and they're ready to hang out, Bob, Carrie, I don't know if I've had Chris. I don't know if I've had one that wasn't, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, everyone's usually pretty fucking cool. What I can say right now is Joe last night was dope as hell. It was a great interview, if I can say so. I'm going to toot my own horn real quick, huh?
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
Baby, let's go. Everybody, thank you all so much. Appreciate the hell out of it. Kaylin, thank you for coming through here. Appreciate it. Make sure I'm not missing anything. You're going to be teleported out of this stream. You're going to be hitting a portal. Let's see where you're going. I've set it up and already forgotten. You're going to be going into the Women Who Rock stream. So yeah, get ready for that. That is going to be actually happening on the 18th. Yeah, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow night. 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So yeah, that's where you're going to be teleported to. You're going to be hitting the portal. Tuck all limbs, arms, and legs inside the portal. You do not want to lose those as we get ready to blast off, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you so much. What an amazing Sunday, per usual. Crazy is what it is. Hit that like as you head out the door. Share this out. Again, like Jay said, let people know about Murder Church. Let people know about the J Buzz Nation. Let people know about Jay. Let people know about Defense Diaries. Let people know what you're hanging out and checking out and you're having in your ears and you're having in front of your eyes throughout the week, because we're doing the damn thing here. And I think it's going to keep growing and growing and growing. And we're going to the moon. I think Jay says that all the time. We're going to the moon, baby. All right, here we go. Let's go. Enjoy your Sunday. I'll see everybody Tuesday for a members only stream. I'm telling you. Let's go. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.